Okay.
Try again.
Hello, welcome to the January 15th, 2025 meeting of CB2 Land Use and Housing Committee. I am Eugene Yu, Chair of the committee. With me, I have Katie Bordenaro, Vice Chair of the committee. Also, quickly go around. Susan Wittenberg.
Arturo Fernandez.
You need to mute your.
Bo Riccobono.
In person.
Anita Brandt.
Donna Raftery.
And then online from the committee, I see John Paul DeVerna, Frederica Siegel,
Yes.
David Gerber.
And Carter Booth.
Okay, I
I don't see Carter.
don't think
He
your
doesn't have
camera's
his
on.
video on, right.
I'll see you in a few minutes.
Oh, okay, even better. All right, we have four things on our agenda tonight. We have two applications and a agenda item for our land use research fellow, and then a business session item, which is a continuation of the discussion about the Gansevoort market development involving the Whitney. But first on the agenda is an application for 246 Spring Street. It's been submitted by 246 Spring Street LLC. This is not a BSA application. This is requesting a certification by the chairperson of the City Planning Commission to the Commissioner of Buildings pursuant to sections 37-624 and 37-73C to allow an open air cafe as a permitted obstruction within an existing public plaza at the above referenced location, which is the Dominic Hotel, which is formerly known as the Trump Soho. Who do we have from presenting for 246 Spring? If you could.
Right here in person, actually.
Oh, in person.
Okay. Could you sit at the table so we could get, the microphones are all at the table. Cameras will pick you up. I don't know if you have a presentation or slides.
I just have the plan for
Okay.
the cafe that I can share,
Okay.
if that's, I'm able to share.
Is there anyone else or is it?
So Victor from the Dominic Hotel, the manager of the Dominic Hotel is there. Again. Doggin, okay.
So this is a new application, not a renewal or anything.
It's a new application.
What, do we have a quick?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Sure.
It's sort of obvious to me. This publicly owned private space was granted pursuant to a bonus to the original builder.
Yes.
So why do you think you have a right to even ask for use of it? And do you have any legal precedent for that? And how do you have standing even to ask for it?
Okay, so there is.
And also, you're the occupant of the building, so you're not the owner of the building, correct?
So I am with the law firm of Kramer Levin, but representing the owner.
Kramer 11.
Yeah, okay.
The owner of the building is, it's the Dominic Hotel. They are the applicant.
Oh, they already, okay.
They're the applicant for the cafe, and it is for the adjacent restaurant, the Vestry, on the ground floor of the building. The
When
zoning.
you say
res-
adjacent, I'm sorry, it's interior to the hotel, but not adjacent to the building separately.
It's in the ground floor of the hotel,
Right.
fronting on Spring Street,
Right.
but the proposed cafe is adjacent to the restaurant.
It's
So
the
that's
cafe,
what-
okay, because you had said the restaurant was adjacent to the hotel. Okay, fine,
Yeah, no, the restaurant is within the hotel.
okay.
You mean it's adjacent to the space?
It's adjacent to the proposed space.
Okay.
So the zoning resolution section 3773C allows for a open air cafe in an existing bonus plaza if it meets certain conditions.
Well, that might be for an existing plaza of some kind, but this is particularly a Pops.
No, exactly. That's what it's.
So you sure that this relates to that?
100% sure. I've done a few of these applications. I used to work in city planning. And so there's, as long as you meet the set criteria, the chair issues a certification for 3 years.
So then can we ask the builder, the owner of the hotel to lop off 3 stories of the building if we grant this?
You can certainly ask.
Well, it would be logical, wouldn't it? It would be logical.
Well, I guess, I would say, I would say that the reason why city planning came up with this certification is the idea that you can, within a small part of the existing plaza, no more than 20% an area. Ours is 5.5%. So it's quite small. It's only 10 tables. The idea is having a cafe in an area that's not already programmed in the plaza could add vibrancy and activity and safety and security. You know, in the
plaza?
evenings and I'm sorry?
In the plaza, you say?
Within the plaza. So if you can, it's just a small area, tables and chairs, people eating and drinking in the evenings, on the weekends, and that can add activity and vibrancy to the plaza. That's the plaza.
I get it.
Let him talk. Let's see what he has.
I just think there's a difference between that, which I generally support,
Sure.
even in a public park, I might support that. But the difference is, this is a place that a bonus was granted for the construction of a hotel in exchange for this publicly owned public space, and now you want to take it away. It's illogical to me. Go ahead.
It's the same as uptown, though.
It doesn't matter. I think it's illogical. Okay.
Add some life to the space, which I think it
But
needs.
not after they've gotten a bonus
Well, let's-
for construction. But go
Let's
ahead.
have him.
Okay. Okay.
Let's the applicant.
So what I was about to say is I sort of already said, but I'll go through the presentation.
And just for clarification, because when some of the emails that were early on in the process, I mean, I'm looking at an email from city planning where they're referring to this as a renewal, but this is not a
There
renewal.
was
right?
So,
Yeah.
do they call it a renewal? It's essentially the same application that came before you 3.5 years ago.
21. I
Right,
think.
right.
It's the exact same thing. That was, and each one, according to the statute and the zoning resolution, each chair certification gets 3 years. It's only 3 years. So, yes, you can call it a renewal, but it's the exact same application process. So,
Okay.
yeah. So again, an open air cafe chair certification application in an existing food block plaza will contain 10 tables and 26 chairs. It's a little over 470 square feet, 5.5% of the total plaza area. So this plan shows the through block plaza, which is the area in white in the middle of the block. And it is immediately adjacent to the hotel. The plaza and the hotel were built in 2006. A design change for the plaza was approved in 2012, which brought the plaza in greater compliance with the plaza regulations that were approved in 2007. The plaza is 8,600 square feet in area, has about 50 feet of frontage on Dominic and Spring Street, and its length is 175 feet. It contains fixed seating, movable tables and chairs, and plantings. Let me just go back. So you can see the dotted line on the left side of the through block plaza. That's where the cafe will be. It was, what we're applying for now is the same location from 2021. I would point out that the cafe never, even though it was approved by the city planning chair, it was never opened.
Why was that?
So there was the open streets, open restaurants in the street, and
Right.
there was the space there outside.
So you took advantage of that program
Exactly.
in lieu of,
Yes.
okay,
Yes, and that is now gone.
3 years.
That is gone.
Using other public space.
But currently, there's nothing.
Currently, there's nothing.
Okay.
Currently, there's nothing. There's no tables and chairs in the street or in the plaza. So as I mentioned, the cafe will total 472 square feet. This shows the plaza as built, with on the right-hand side of the plaza, the hatching is the plantings. Again, there's benches and there's movable tables and chairs. And then on the left-hand side of the plaza is the cafe. Its width is 9.5 feet at its widest point at the top, and then it tapers down to 5 feet at the south. It will have a single row of 10 tables and 26 chairs and one litter receptacle.
And one what?
Litter receptacle.
Oh, litter receptacle. Thank you.
Trash can. So the application meets.
How long is it?
how long is the, let's see.
The litter bag?
68.
It's the entire frontage, right?
It's what's, yeah, and just to zoom in. So you see what 68.2, that actually is helpful to see it that way. So there are conditions in the zoning resolution in order to obtain the certification, which we meet. Will be unenclosed and open to the sky except for umbrellas. It's less than 20% of the size of the plaza, and it's 5.5%. It's located at the edge of the plaza. It is set back 26 feet from Spring Street so that it doesn't occupy any street frontage. It does not block any required pedestrian circulation as shown in the plan. So you can see between the cafe and the benches and the plantings, there's a wide area that's at least 10 feet, and that's what we're required to retain. It's accessible from all sides from the plaza and will not have any barriers separating it from the plaza. It will be open a minimum of 225 days a year, and the furniture will be removed in the off-season. And there's the findings for the certification. I'll just go through those quickly. The cafe will promote public use and enjoyment of the plaza by providing activity, as I mentioned, which will be especially welcome in the evenings and on the weekends. It will complement the desirable uses in the area. I'm stating what's in the zoning resolution. Having a cafe here, we believe, is complementary to the increasing residential and commercial presence in Hudson Square. The operator of the restaurant will ensure that the cafe is well maintained and doesn't encroach beyond the permitted cafe zone. And the cafe will not adversely impact the visual and physical access to and throughout the plaza. So those are all the findings. And it is for a 3-year term. So happy to answer any other questions.
I have a question. You said this is for public use. What is the accessibility to this space? Can people access it from the sidewalk? Do they need to go in through the restaurant, the hotel? What are the different methods
to get to? So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the plan is that you go through the restaurant and then you will go.
And then they're going to be seated outside.
Right.
Yes, right. But it's accessible, and there will be a host outside as well. There'll be a station in there.
So there's a host, so it's like a traditional restaurant.
No, that's
You come, you have a reservation.
yes,
You get
yeah,
seated.
and then we will ask the guests if they want to be seated outside or inside. They have a choice if that's approved, right? So then we have.
And if someone
Is
just
it a
wanted
full
to
restaurant
enjoy.
inside, or is it just like outside is a coffee bar?
It's outside the restaurant.
No, I understand that, but
Is it like
is it an
equivalent
extension
to-
of the
It's
restaurant,
an
or is it
extension
just
of
where
the
you might go for
restaurant.
coffee?
It's an extension. They can order the regular
The
menu.
full menu is
come in.
available.
Yeah, full menus.
But they can't just like come for coffee, is what I
Oh, they
guess.
can. I mean, if they want.
If
to
there
come
were
for
space in the
coffee, there's
restaurant,
space,
yeah.
of course, definitely. We will not turn away guests, right? So
What if a guest was not paying and they just wanted to read a book?
then the plazas, there are a lot of seats in the plaza itself, right? So that's.
But they
It's a restaurant.
come in, but they need to come in through,
Yeah.
again, through
If
the,
they just want to really read a book, and
Sure.
there are some spaces in the hotel, in the lobby, not in the cafe, because
not in this, not.
not
It's
in
a
the
restaurant.
cafe. Yeah, it's a restaurant. Yes.
Like, I just want to get
You don't want
clarification.
Is the little offset in that corner of the tree?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's the tree.
Katie, I think, has a question.
Yeah, I have a couple. So is the restaurant in the upper gray quadrant of the,
That's
on
correct.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
And so now you'll have to come for a liquor license, you'll have to extend the liquor license as well, right, Donna?
Does the existing liquor license cover this space?
I'm not sure. It may cover.
Look
Yeah.
into that, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
If it doesn't exist now,
So we have an existing license,
But if it doesn't include that area, you'll need to.
and we will have to get another one.
Okay. And who takes care of the tables and chairs and plantings on of the plaza, not the cafe?
Right.
Who's responsible for the upkeep of the
We are.
The hotel.
hotel? Okay, and how many days did you say again it was going to be open a year?
So it's a minimum of 220,
225, okay.
25.
And have you gone to the Hudson Square bid? Have they given you an opinion about this?
I have not met with them, but I'm pretty.
Yeah, they're
you have a-
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Okay,
yeah, you're in pretty frequent.
Yeah.
okay,
We
thank
we
you.
have a lot of communications with them.
Okay, thank you. I see some other hands up.
Frederica?
Yeah, hi. Are you willing to modify the design of the cafe so that there's access directly from the plaza?
So there is access directly from the plaza. There's no barrier at all. So you can walk straight from that's a requirement of the certification. In the zoning, it says you can't have any sort of barrier. So you can walk directly to the cafe from the plaza. And then, as Victor said, there'll be a hostess there.
But you'll be intercepted by a host.
Right, so can the gentleman who represents the restaurant, or the hotel, can he confirm that you'll just take walk-ins who might want a cup of coffee as they come off the plaza? Is that going to be a welcoming design to people?
It's going to be, to be honest with you, we are open. We're a dinner restaurant, right? So if guests just want to have coffee or some cocktail drinks, of course they're welcome to. There's a more how I will say this. There is a more convenient location for them by the bar if they want to do that. But if they want to sit in the plaza, by all means do that. Right?
You know
All right,
what?
that's great. So let me, we could talk about this for a really long time, or we could make it a shorter conversation. We have in our hands previous resolutions where the community board has been very adamant that we were against privatizing the space. Nonetheless, in 2 previous occasions, the chair has certified over our recommendation. So since it's exactly the same design proposal as before, I think that we of the land use committee can be pretty sure that the chair is going to do the same this time around. I feel like we could use our 2020 resolution with just a few changes and pretty much echo everything we said back then. But I think it would be a wonderful.
Could we first get through the questions? I mean,
Well, this is a question. I'm asking.
seems like a
I
statement.
asked my question and now I'm saying it might just be that we could turn this down again as we did before.
Okay. John Paul?
Right. Question mark.
That's not to the applicant.
I saw in some of the Google Maps going just through the years, there's some metal chairs and tables that are otherwise would be going or are situated where this cafe sits. I assume you can't have both. Like, are you taking away that seating area that's demonstrated in all these photos?
Right. So if you look at what's on the screen now.
Do you have a photo of the current conditions?
And
I can share you mine if you'd like,
Yeah.
but I'm still going
I
to
guess
September 24th.
I have some that I took last.
In the building.
Yeah, I have some that I took last spring, and it's true that there will be tables and chairs sort of spread out, not exactly as shown on this plan. You can see the clusters of movable tables and chairs on the right.
Right.
Inevitably people move them to other parts, sometimes along the wall of the hotel. So when the
Is that because there's more sun there at different times of the day?
Yeah, different times of the day there. I would point out though that there is this, when I was there, sort of trying to show the rest of it, but you can see south of the cafe, there's 3 tables and chairs there. Often when I go there, there's a lot more than those 3. So I think people do tend to concentrate on the southern end and move the tables and chairs.
Yes.
Do you have anything else to?
Yeah, so right now, actually, the tables, the metal chairs and chairs that you're talking about are all located almost by the Dominic Street, right? Not by not Spring Street next to the restaurant.
More interior.
And there's on the other side of the plaza, you will see some benches in there, which is away from us, right? So it's on the other side where the plants are and all. So those metal tables that you're talking about is on the latter half of the more on the Dominic Street side. Nothing is on the Spring side.
Yeah, in the several pictures I see, they pretty much start lining them up really where the glass stops and the brick continues on. But your cafe extends past that glass, or am I reading that wrong?
The cafe goes down to here.
About halfway, and that's past where the glass of the front of the hotel ends, right?
I'm not sure.
There is a door, there is a door on that.
Picture here, it shows a couple double doors on the side of that breezeway. And those doors are beyond the glass, or at least, sorry, the first one looks like it's where the glass ends. So clearly half of the proposed site is utilized by public to put, as they slide the tables over there.
Yeah.
I think if you look at photos 3 and 6 of what you supplied to us.
Yes.
Shows the area
it's-
that he's.
Yeah, you see that glass, that's where gonna be the restaurant is. And there's also a door on that, right? So when you see the restaurant, it's also all those tables are after the restaurant area. There's actually an access from the plaza. There's a door that we're not opening right now, right? So,
But there will also be more landscaping, right? As
yes,
part of this.
yes, as part of that. Yes.
Okay.
We are.
Can you get up and show us on that?
Just trying to, I don't know if I didn't mean to jump in here, but this is
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm showing
See
here.
that?
This is where the glass ends.
By the brick side.
And these are where the tables are, and in all the photos here of these, tables
Yeah.
that are shown, it all pretty much goes to where the glass is.
Yes.
So,
My concern is your proposed cafe, it's gonna go past to that area, right? It's gonna go, these people who are sitting right here.
It will, yeah, a little bit, yes, just a little bit on that, yes.
So this area which is currently walkable through, it's now going to be closed off? Is that?
No, there will be
No?
access there.
There's still
Yes,
access, so once
No
it's
wall.
to the other side.
you can still.
Yes.
You
Yeah, no, we have to, that's a requirement.
That's a requirement,
Yes.
okay.
We will not obstruct.
And will the space available be, I mean, it looks like probably in the spring and summer, this would be very attractive for like private events and things like that. Is that
They want that. yes.
also
Mhm.
within the scope?
oh, wait a minute.
If, go ahead.
Not in the outside area.
Not
I
yet.
mean, that's,
Okay, not in the, okay.
No private event.
That's my first question, which sounds like, yeah, you're taking away a place that otherwise public likes to set up in. And then you mentioned at your outset that there's a public benefit here. I'm trying to wonder what that is beyond the people of public can go and pay to go there.
Yeah, could you articulate the public benefit?
Sure. So again, the idea behind allowing a portion of an existing plaza to have a cafe, having the presence of people eating and drinking, especially in the evenings and the weekends when these plazas are less populated, brings activity and vibrancy, safety to these plazas. So that's the thinking behind it. I recognize, that folks are saying that it's privatizing a space that generated a bonus. From a public policy standpoint, from the city planning standpoint, there's a benefit in having a portion of that. I mean, it's open to the public, but you have to.
So you're saying without this, that we wouldn't have people eating and drinking on the streets in our neighborhood?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But again, the idea is a small portion of the plaza to a restaurant eating and drinking.
Well, I mean, I would point out that our district has an abundance of places to eat, of eating and drinking establishments. And, through the programs we've had, the cafes and so on, there's plenty of opportunities for people to be eating and drinking. So I guess I'm still not hearing the public benefit of this particular application.
Yeah, if I may say something, it's, when we add this, it will definitely add vibrancy to the area, right? Yes, you're right, absolutely correct. There's a lot of outside places where you can eat in our place. So that's one of the attractions of this area. But we just want to add it specifically in that area.
But in the Google, in the street view I'm looking at now, there's already people sitting and drinking. They're eating and drinking their own food.
Correct, and that's they're using the purpose of the plaza, right? That we just want to add more on that, and additionally as well, this will attract more guests and more customers for us, and more job for
more revenue for the
hotel. More job that could be added, and more revenue, more tips for the waiters and the servers who are working as well, who are also living in New York City.
Oh, so
not all who are living in New York City, but not all, I'm saying, but majority of them are.
Are you, or do you even have?
I don't think John was finished. That's
Yeah, I think I had two questions.
Okay, you lost.
Just about, and they confirmed that tables are moved taken for the public benefit, they articulated as best they could, however, it leaves me wanting. It sounds like Frederica actually looked at it and said, likely you're gonna get this again. Is there something you can do that makes it so it's more palatable to the community board, ultimately, of what you're asking for? Is there something more you can offer to make it seem like we're not gonna be as upset with the decision that ultimately might be rendered anyway, besides just the fact that what you've talked about here?
We are open to suggestions.
Yes.
Well,
You take
there-
like your
a
sales
couple years from our last.
into the plaza.
resolution.
What about that?
Sorry. Go
Are
ahead,
you
Tom.
taking portions of outside sales and putting that back into the plaza, or donating them to an arts fund, or doing something like that? What do you mean you're open to suggestions?
Well, it's just, if you have, because you're saying that is it something that we can do.
Mhm.
If there's anything that you want to suggest to us, and of course we will consider and I'll look into that, right? And there's a lot of things to consider as well. If it's feasible and doable, why not, right? So that we can, we would the initial purpose is really to have a purpose and sense to belong in this community, right? It's
Right.
not just all business, but it's all to add vibrancy. Our guests do add vibrancy to the shopping areas in here, right? So we would like to add a little bit more beyond that, right?
Right. I mean, it just seems that, there's been several years since this resolution in 2020. So, I feel like there's probably been a few years to brainstorm about what could change in the application between then and now. And it seems like,
Actually didn't implement it though. That wasn't in practice.
yeah, it wasn't in practice.
I have a question. Do y'all have plans or already have submitted applications for sidewalk or roadway cafes?
Oh, in the current program?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, but
Not yet?
we have
So
not really looked into that aside from the coffee in the
So
plaza.
you might consider in the future, in addition to this, also pursuing a sidewalk and a roadway
A
cafe?
sidewalk, because right now I can tell you that we have not talked about it because of the structure of the building and the entrance of the restaurant. And also, then if we do that, we will be occupying parking spots where our guests would be arriving and departing, right? So that will also hinder the operation of the hotel side. So that's why right now we are not looking into that.
Would you be willing to not pursue that if you got?
As I've said,
More
there's
favorable-
not even a plan. I have not heard, right? I have not heard of anything like that at the front area.
No, but I guess what I'm asking is if we were to support this, would you be willing to state that you're not going to pursue a sidewalk or roadway cafe?
I can bring that back to the ownership and then we can make that decision.
So Donna, I think you have.
I had another second question. On the plaza, there is a valve and a door. Is that an emergency exit? And do you know what the valve is?
Which one?
This one right here? Oh, sorry.
See?
That valve and then that door.
Yeah, that's an emergency exit, and then there's another one that's an actual entrance if you move a little bit.
Please speak up so everyone can hear.
That's an emergency exit.
And then could you pull up the plan again? My only concern, the one with the tables,
Sure.
is just if that is an emergency exit, not having tables in front of it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We will not block anything. That's not.
Okay, Donna?
What are the hours of the restaurant?
5 to 10:30.
So if somebody wants to sit out there for breakfast, lunch, something like that, how are they doing that if the restaurant's open?
It's
from-
closed, right? So there's nobody will serve them there.
It's only open at night.
So it's
We're open at night.
open at night. So
Right now, we are open at night. One thing I can tell you is we are considering opening for lunch.
So the
But no breakfast, because our breakfast,
hours for the hotel lobby bar are 12 p.m. to 1 a.m. Sunday, Monday to Tuesday, 10 to 2 a.m. Wednesday, Saturday, 10 to 3:30 a.m. Restaurant, library, and hotel lobby are 12 p.m. to 1 a.m. Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 a.m.
correct.
The ground floor areas, whether they use them or not, but those are the approved
okay.
hours in the license.
Donna, is there anything?
And so then if there's a private event inside, can anybody access the outside, or is it then the outside plaza area?
Depends on how they booked it, right? If they
Right.
do a total bar, then nobody can access. But if there is a section in the restaurant inside, where you can just book that, then others can use the remaining.
So essentially, this is like putting a sidewalk cafe, your restaurant sidewalk cafe, instead of in the sidewalk in the public plaza.
In the public plaza.
Okay. And so my next question, just for the committee more so than for you, is, or whoever wants to answer this for me, could there be a kiosk there? Somebody separate operating this that has nothing to do with the hotel so that somebody, no.
No, there's a separate application for a kiosk.
Can they do a separate application for, that's what I'm asking, not can, pretend the hotel isn't, because as way I see this is the hotel got something and the public good out of that was the plaza. Now the hotel is getting a sidewalk cafe in the public area and they are profiting from it instead of some other small business profiting from it. I understand adding the vibrancy to the park and having people being able to get a cup of coffee at whatever hour or a drink or, you know, to have something there, especially at nighttime. But why should that go to the hotel who was already benefited from this? Why is there not an obligation to open this up to whoever for a conversation of somebody who would strictly be operating it for that area, for the public, not constricted to the hotel hours necessarily, and not constricted if there's a private party inside?
You mean like a public plaza?
Yeah, exactly.
Street or 14th Street.
I'm just asking a question.
There's a place
They're all over the place.
They're pretty great, actually.
I didn't hear an answer.
Oh, was that a question for me?
Yeah, well, it was a question for somebody.
I mean, there is the process for applying for a kiosk in addition to a cafe. I will tell you, in my experience, the kiosk is often operated by the adjacent restaurant as well, not always, but yeah. And that is the same process as this. It's a chair certification that gets referred to the community court.
I mean, I think one, just to follow up on what Donna just said, that might be a more appropriate use for public space all day long, rather than just a 5 to 10 hour,
Well, to us maybe, but it doesn't benefit the restaurant. I mean, this is to benefit the restaurant.
No, but it could benefit the hotel. The hotel could apply for the kiosk. The kiosk could be open all day. It would provide a public service.
Benefit the street.
It would benefit the street.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just saying they want to expand the restaurant.
We know that.
Yeah,
Just to be clear, the restaurant is the hotel,
right.
because you incorporated it back into your.
Are we moving into business session now, like a business session? No? Okay.
Some other.
No, we're just trying to understand this completely.
I'm done.
You're done? Okay.
Well, I have a very quick practical question. Illumination, since it's always after dark, what kind of illumination will the tables have? And it looks like the tables are basically running alongside the building. They get smaller and the 5-foot aisle stays the same. That 5-foot aisle is the religion, right? Right? There's no barrier.
There's a tape on the paving
At
surface.
the corridor.
Well, that closes off the public. I mean, that's a clear do not enter.
Well, it's just tape. It's not an elevated.
No, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah, the idea is it needs to be demarcated on the plaza so that you don't encroach outside.
And did you ever, there's nothing happens on the floor, on the ground?
No.
And how is it illuminated?
So the plaza is required to be lit at night. I don't know, I mean, maybe there will be some.
Like little table lights or something?
Oh, definitely.
But not above. I'm just thinking,
No.
I don't want a big light.
Is it light? Is there lighting there now in the plaza?
Yeah.
There are sufficient lighting.
It's open all night.
There has to be.
Yeah, never closed.
Yes.
It's public space.
Yes.
Well, they closed off our public spaces
No,
both
that's
here
annoying.
and there.
But it would close.
We just finished actually repairing the lights in the plaza, so, yeah.
Well, and the hotel is responsible for maintaining this plaza.
That's
So that right there is a benefit. I mean, I would categorize that as a benefit. Okay, thank you.
Carter,
So it just sounds like you took the steps to make the plaza safer
With
by
the,
making the lights. So I'm not sure you need the tables and chairs. So what have you guys done to program the space?
to what?
Encourage public use of the space and programming
You know what,
or non-programming?
last year we allowed the Girl Scouts to sell their cookies in there. put some in there that we encourage our employees to go and support that, right? So that's the one that I can think of right now, because that's the one who asked us and reached out to us, right? And we said, yes, it's a good cause. It's little girls in there with their parents, and they're scoutmasters selling things, selling cookies. So we supported that.
And I was just going to say, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I know that you would like to program, and you've spoken with the bid. It's not, I would say, the requirements for the plaza. I mean, you can have the cafe, the certification. The idea of having events within the plaza, like, to attract the public, farmers markets and things like that. It's the zoning is not entirely clear what can happen, because that also can be seen as privatizing.
But
events.
Yeah, but
which is sort of unfortunate, because obviously.
But I'm talking about the just active management, tables, chairs, umbrellas. What do you do to get people out there? Because you're saying space isn't working, but this is a direct financial benefit, not really a public benefit.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what it's supposed to be. So I just see this as, you have to go inside to be seated outside. That's how it was set up before.
Right.
And I just not understanding how there's a complement. It's not like, you're going to have big discounts to make it an affordable place for people to get something to sit outside. It just seems like, we want to do something, let's use the space. And as Arturo was pointing out, you have other options for outdoor areas, but this is supposed to be for the public. Even if this was just benches lined on there and people just sitting there and using it, that's still beneficial, because we don't have all that much in the area. There are some other areas, but that just seems like it's more accessible to every day. And if this is just at night, that's sort of a weird, it's not all day long. So
it could be a possibility
just to add
for
on,
lunch.
Well, just to add on to that, I mean, I'm assuming currently, some people may use this space to have a lunch and eat their lunch if they work in the area. But moving forward, that use would not be allowed, right?
No, it will be. I mean, because the existing tables can still be used by the public, and
we're not removing.
We're not restricting those.
Tables and chairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of space.
There's a lot of tables. Yes,
But
exactly.
why isn't there seating out there in this area already?
Right. I mean, this was a design that
Not about
Yeah.
this in addition, but not having it as part of the cafe.
This was a design. So the requirements for plazas are very strict in terms of the number of tables and chairs and permitted obstructions and plantings. I mean, it's down to, the dimensions. So this design was approved in 2012 by city planning with the number of tables and chairs that were considered appropriate, desirable. And again, you can then apply to supplement that plaza with an open air cafe. But, I do want to emphasize that all the tables and chairs that are on the plaza today are not going to be removed for this open air cafe. They may be shifted around, but not going to be removed.
Following up on that.
Yeah.
Does city planning have, outside of any cafe, but the required tables and chairs, is there a minimum and a maximum?
So there's a minimum. You get into the maximum when you hit what's called a permitted obstruction maximum, because they want circulation. So there's a minimum amount of plantings, benches, and movable tables and chairs. But you hit the maximum. All of those are considered permitted obstructions, and you can't exceed the percentage of permitted obstructions. So that's when there's a maximum.
So the existing tables and chairs and benches and trees, what percentage of the plaza do they cover currently? And what I'm getting at is just adding these cafe tables, does that get us over the maximum?
It doesn't get us over the maximum because you're allowed to, I don't know what the existing permitted obstruction percentage is, but it's below the maximum, and you are allowed to have 20%, an increase of 20% for a cafe, and we're 5.5%.
So you can increase the permitted obstruction percentage by 20% to have the cafe, but you do not know what percentage the
The existing.
exist.
And I don't know.
You could get that to us and tell us
Absolutely. yes.
how, where we are, because I don't know if I want to make sure.
Yeah.
That you're not going over.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to give that to you.
Will, so I'm writing down action point, will give us,
Existing permitted obstruction percentage.
yes.
Are there other questions from the committee? And so I
I
just want
want
to,
to follow up.
jump off.
Thank you. Do you know what the sales were on average out of there, either gross receipts or net on it?
On,
On the cafe when it was running?
we didn't open
It
that.
was never, this was always just a plaza, right?
Yeah, we got the approval 3.5 years ago, but it never.
Oh, wait, you never opened it? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. Would you be amenable to profit share? If you're taking 5% of the plaza, would you give up 5% of your receipts?
Might have to take that back.
Sorry, it's beyond my job grade to decide.
That's a guaranteed yes vote.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'd like to open it up to public questions at this point. If you are, I think I saw Darlene had her hand raised.
To promote her.
Promoter, yeah. And if anyone else from the public would like to speak, please use the raise hand function.
Or if there's someone in the room, we can't
Or in
see.
the room as well, sorry. Well, in the room, you can just
Speak up.
speak up, yes, but we'll go to Darlene first.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. Happy New Year. My name is Darlene Lutz. I'm a 45-year-long resident, 2 blocks south of this location. So I've been involved in the history of it since it was incepted. I believed you received an email from Sean Sweeney of the Soho Alliance on it, where he detailed the history of the adjacent plaza. I'm going to stand by all those statements in totality. This was a deal that was made. This is public space in perpetuity for more height on the hotel. I don't know why this is even in discussion at this point, but regardless, since I am an active walker in my community, I pass through this space constantly, every day. It is true. It was not very active. It is very active now. It has been since the pandemic. And particularly because of a radical shift in population here since the pandemic. We have a lot more people coming to work. Trader Joe's has expanded its fabulous offerings of cheap eats to grab and go. There are people in there eating their lunch, their breakfast, frankly, it's kind of an oasis space where it's not chaotic. So when you talk about bringing more vibrancy, all well and good. Does every place have to be clamoring? Can we just have a space to go into where I don't have to listen to, as I do in Spring Park, if I want to just go and have a small respite there, tour guides blathering away on megaphones? No, that doesn't happen in this space. It's really, it's really come into its own as being a public space that's not chaotic, where you can, enjoy being in. Also, the adjacent building to the east has had scaffolding on it. And I think that there are, there's a history of photographs that show it. It has been under scaffolding. It was under scaffolding for a good portion of the pandemic. Then it came down. And this goes halfway into to the length of the plaza. So there is a small walkway. It cuts it in half. It's cut it in half. That's happened twice since I think the scaffolding may have come down. I'd have to go check my zillion photographs, but just the latest scaffolding on that building just came down. So that cuts into the space. It cuts into the space, and it cuts into obviously, because then, where there's scaffolding, there's construction. So again, a calm public urban space is nothing to, chuck in the trash for vibrancy. And this is absolutely, privatization of public space at this point. And they made a deal. The community does not want, we don't need more outdoor dining in what is little public space we have. I'm going to mention that last night I sat through the 6+ hours of open dining applications. And one applicant said the silent part out loud. He said, the food doesn't matter. What matters is that we have outdoor space because, during rosé season, the food doesn't matter. And that shocked me. That's where operators are at. They want public space. They want the space outdoors for people to come and drink. And this will be no different. So that's what they're asking for, is a place for people to come outside and drink and probably smoke, because it's outdoors. And that's where we're at in New York, I guess. But again, it's a deal is a deal is a deal. We don't have a lot of public space here, so giving it away is criminal and outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. All right, I'll go to the room. Is anyone from the public? Any questions in the room? I don't see any.
Another question.
I do want to say something
Sure,
about the
go ahead.
public.
Of course.
The committee received, I think the whole committee received, but the chairs received today a letter from Sean
The Soho
Sweeney
Alliance.
in his capacity as director of Soho Alliance, or, echoing some of what Darlene said, and also in opposition. And so I want to be sure that we record that we received written testimony.
Okay, and I believe there's also a letter from Darlene.
Yes,
Lutz as well.
yeah.
I just wanted to ask,
Sure.
you have speakers in the vestry space attached to your outside wall,
Amplified music.
amplified music outside.
Is that true?
You're saying there is today, or?
Yeah.
We have not used it.
You have not used it, but
So why
is
are
there
they up
equipment or
Say it again.
are there speakers for amplified music in the space?
I am not familiar with that, but there is, but
Well,
we have not
there, right?
used it, right? So, yeah,
So why are they up there?
it may have been up there for a reason before, right? So that, it's,
Music's never been allowed outside.
yeah. Mhm.
Ever.
I don't think they are opening that because I passed through that at night,
Mhm.
right? When I'm like
Sure.
going home and all these things, I don't hear any music going there. But
Okay.
But I assume you'd operate it the same way because it's part of your restaurant. It's your outdoor space
Mhm.
on Spring Street, I believe. And there's speakers installed.
there are two
Yes.
two tables.
Why would
but
we
right-
expect you wouldn't operate the other area the same way?
So you're pointing out to speakers that are on Spring Street, is that not in the plaza, but on Spring Street?
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
but it's part of the restaurant. That's how you operate it.
Yeah, it's been an issue in the community as and I don't think every operator is aware that
Noise
Right.
emanating from.
that amplified music is not permitted. Going back to the committee, any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, very much, Jess. Thank you very much for your application. At that, we'll move it on to the next,
second item.
the second application item.
The second item is 218 West Houston Street,
Thank you.
also 58 Downing Street, an application to the Board of Standards and Appeals pursuant to section 72-01 and 72-22 of the zoning resolution to amend a previously granted variance to expand an existing residential healthcare facility. Now, I assume that Judith Gallant is here on that, and is Kurt Steinhaus here on that application? And
Yes.
Joe Palante, are you
Yes.
here on that application? And Michael Schreiber? You here? Okay, so we've identified the people, and Judith, are you going to be the one who speaks?
Yes, I will be the one to speak.
And do you have a slide deck?
Yes, Kurt Steinhaus will be sharing his screen for the slide deck. Should we do that now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you. Now you're going to walk us through it, please?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I'm Judy Gallant, as you heard from BCLP, Brian K. Layton Paisner. We are the land use counsel to the owner of the West Village Rehabilitation and Nursing Center, which is formerly known as Village Care, which many of you are probably familiar with, a longstanding institution in the village. I'm joined by my colleague, Kurt Steinhaus, the project architect, Joseph Palante, and Michael Schreiber, who's a representative of the owner and the operator of the facility. Next slide, please. The facility is located at 214 West Houston Street, which is lot 12, shown on the tax map. It has frontage on both West Houston and Downing Streets, and it's between Bedford and Varick. And we're here tonight in connection with an application for an amendment to the BSA variance pursuant to which the Village Care Facility was constructed when it moved from its location on West 12th and Hudson to permit an enlargement of the existing facility onto the adjacent lot 27 shown here, which is an interior lot on Downing Street. It's adjacent to the west. On the next slide, please.
Right.
Thank you.
The West Village, as it's now known, the West Village Rehabilitation and Nursing Center is a 105-bed skilled nursing facility, which offers skilled nursing and rehabilitation. It offers short-term care, which includes physical, occupational, and speech therapy for patients that are being discharged from acute care settings, which are hospitals. And here you can see the buildings, West Houston Street on the frontage on the left, and the Downing Street frontage on the right. Next slide, please. As you may know, there is really an acute shortage of skilled nursing and rehabilitation beds in Manhattan generally, and in downtown Manhattan in particular. Between 2011 and 2021, Manhattan saw the third largest increase in older adults of any county in the state, with an increase of more than 70,000 people over the age of 65, and a 13% increase in the population of those 85 and older. In the broader downtown area, from Chelsea to the financial district, there are approximately 69,000 residents over the age of 65. And these are the populations that are most likely to require care in a residential healthcare facility or nursing home. Despite the increasing demand for beds downtown, there are only 3 nursing and rehabilitation facilities below 14th Street, with a total of 458 beds. And that includes the existing facility, which has 105 beds, the new East Side Nursing Home and Bialystock Place with 58 beds, and the new Bouvier Hospital at 227 Madison Street, which has 295 beds. By comparison, uptown, there are 3,700 beds across 10 different nursing homes, with the southernmost one located on East 71st Street. And as a result of this shortage, today, the West Village Rehab and Nursing Center turns away 3 people for every person that it accepts, which means that 3,465 people, roughly, are turned away every year that the facility really can't accommodate. The next slide, please. Yeah, in response to this really urgent and growing demand for beds, the existing building needs to be enlarged. And the owner purchased lot 27 on Downing Street in order to enlarge the existing building. And as you can see from this slide, an as-of-right enlargement, which would comply with zoning, would result in a net increase of only 4 beds. There would be 2 additional beds on each of the 2nd through 5th floors of an addition, for a total of 8 beds in the enlargement. But the existing facility would lose 4 beds in the existing building, 1 bed on each of floors 2 through 5, due to the need to connect the 2 portions, the old and the new, because it would have to operate as a single facility. Next slide, please. By contrast, here, this is the proposed enlargement, which requires variances that I'll describe in a moment. It would result in 20 additional beds, 2 bedrooms on each of floors 2 through 6, with no loss of existing beds. And these 20 additional beds would increase the facility's capacity by almost 20% and allow it to serve an additional 240 people per year. Next slide, please. There's also a need to increase rehabilitation space. So rehabilitation therapy, which includes physical, occupational, and speech therapy, is, as you may know, crucial to the patients in the facility attaining their highest level of functioning, whatever that might be, and regaining their independence so that they can return home. The therapy space in the existing building is overburdened, and it's inadequate for the existing population, with just 18 square feet of therapy space per patient. Other similar facilities in the city offer much more, anywhere between 27 to 42 square feet per patient, with an average of 37 square feet per patient, based on data that we could find. And to give some context to these numbers, today, residents at the facility have to use public corridors outside of the existing physical therapy space for their ambulating programs to practice walking. And in addition, there's no setting in the facility for residents to practice the activities of daily living, such as, sitting down to eat and using cutlery, et cetera, and moving from the bed out of the bed, or using a toilet. There is no dedicated suite for that to practice the skills they will need in order to transition back to home. Next slide, please. So another deficiency of the as-of-right enlargement, one that complies with zoning, is that it can only accommodate a limited amount of additional rehab space, because the floor plates are very constrained by the narrowness and shallowness of lot 27. It has a width of just 16.5 feet, and its maximum depth, it varies, but the maximum depth is 64 feet. And then on top of that, there's a rear yard requirement. So as a result, in an as-of-right enlargement, the therapy space only be increased by 2 square feet per patient, from 18 to 20 square feet, which is not enough to measurably enhance the quality of the patient experience. Next slide. The proposed enlargement, with the requested rear yard and lot coverage variances, would permit a larger floor plate, and that would result in 25 square feet of therapy space per patient, compared to the existing 18 square feet per patient. And this increase would enhance the patient experience and the quality of care. Next slide. As I indicated earlier, in order to enlarge the existing facility, the owner purchased the neighboring lot, which is shown here. It's currently developed with a 3-story single-family dwelling. This existing building, unfortunately, cannot be renovated to accommodate the enlargement, because it's wood frame construction, which is highly combustible, and it does not comply with the 2012 National Fire Protection Association fire resistance requirements for nursing homes and rehabilitation facilities, which have been adopted by the New York State Department of Health and apply to all nursing homes in the state. Cannot have wood frame construction in a nursing home. And under the NFPA and DOH standards, there is nothing that can be done to retrofit the existing building for nursing home use. So accordingly, the building has to be demolished and a new addition built. The building is not designated as a landmark by the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission, and it's not located in the Greenwich Village Historic District or any other historic district designated by the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission. While it is located in the South Village State and National Historic District, That does not preclude its demolition. It merely requires state and federal agencies that are taking actions related to the site to comply with the state, in this case, the State Preservation Act, Historic Preservation Act, which might require consultation with the State Preservation Office, but it does not impact the city agencies such as BSA. May I have the next slide, please? Although the owner considered and tried to preserve the facade of the existing building, since it can't preserve the building, it's not possible to do so because the window openings, the existing window openings in the existing 3-story building don't align with the proposed building. And as you can see from the image on the left, might be hard to see, in order to align with the floors of the existing nursing home, the floors of the enlargement would be at the level of the windowsills in the existing building. So it just doesn't work. So instead, the owner is proposing that the facade of the enlargement, which is shown on the right, would incorporate materials recycled from the existing facade of the 3-story building, including the cornice, the lintels, the sills, the doors and railings, anything possible to maintain the existing character and be responsive to the character of the area. May I have the next slide? The proposed enlargement would consist of a total of 6,400 square feet of floor area, consisting of 1,134 square feet of additional floor area on lot 12. That's the existing, where the existing building is, to create the connection between the two, and 5,268 square feet of new construction on lot 27. Now, the existing facility, which some of you may remember, was constructed pursuant to a 2005 BSA variance, which this board voted in approval for. It had lot coverage, a lot coverage variance, a rear yard variance, and a setback variance. Enlarging the nursing home as proposed onto lot 27 requires an amendment to that 2005 variance for the same things plus one additional one, and I'll go through them. For lot coverage, with the enlargement, the combined zoning lot would have a lot coverage of 86%, where 65 is permitted. The old variance allowed a coverage of 84%, so it's increasing by 2%. With respect to rear yard, the proposed enlargement on lot 27 would have a rear yard that ranges in depth because it has an angle from 3 feet 10 inches at a minimum to 10 feet 9 inches. Because it's a very shallow lot, it has a reduced rear yard requirement of only 18.5 feet, but it would be less than what is required. Like the existing building, the street wall of the enlargement would match what exists. It would rise to a height of 77 feet and 3 inches without a setback. And under zoning, a setback would be required at a height of 65 feet. You have to set back 15 feet at a height of 65 feet, which it would not do. But the overall height is within the maximum permitted height, just the same as the existing nursing home. And then finally, with respect to floor area, the combined zoning lot would have a maximum permitted FAR of 4.7 blended between the two. And, with the proposed enlargement, the zoning lot would have an FAR of 4.83. So it would require a variance of 0.13 FAR. And we are, of course, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I have a couple questions to start off. Are there any people living in the townhouse now, or were there when you bought it?
Michael, could you answer that question?
No, there were not, and there are not.
And when was the last time someone lived there? Was it a single family home or is it a multiple family dwelling?
It's a single family dwelling. I can't tell you when someone was there. We had purchased it. It was vacant.
And when did you purchase it?
Last, I believe it was 2020, end of 23, beginning of 24.
Okay, thank you. Back to Judy. You said that this might require consultation with what's known as SHPO. So can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, that required, yes, that under the State Historic Preservation Act, that is a requirement that applies to state agencies only. So the BSA is not required to do that.
No, but you will have to go to them? in this process?
There is a certificate of need that's required. The State Department of Health would decide whether it needs to consult with SHPO.
I see.
The State Historic Preservation Office. That's up to DOH to interpret,
Okay.
whether it has to consult.
Determine consultation. And when you had the figures on and very early on, you said there were 69,000 people from Chelsea to the financial district. Is that river to river, or is that just on the west side?
I don't believe this statistic is based just on the west side. I don't believe so. I can find out, but.
Okay, that was just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee in the room?
I think we passed 3 resolutions on this in the past. Was just pulling them all up because nobody else did. And I just want to go through what the issues were then on this, and a lot of them seem to be just from cursory looking over this, and again, just kind of doing this on the fly, but the biggest issues was there's community opposition with respect to the design of the facade.
Yeah.
Minimizing rooftop mechanical equipment and noise. Construction coordination, and this was obviously in the beginning, and excavation. These are all of our typical issues. The board was in support of it, but I think that those are sort of all seem to be some of the same issues that we would normally ask with respect to, and it sounds like some of the using the facade materials and stuff like that is positive, but I was wondering if you could maybe address some of those other issues, and just so that it's consistent with, sort of the past concerns, because they're exactly what everybody here would have.
Yeah, and let's start with the mechanicals, Judy. Are there going to be new mechanicals on this building or expanded on the other one? Do you know?
Joseph Palante, could you address that, the project architect?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. We are going to extend the existing mechanicals that are already on the roof, and they're already encased in screens and not visible to the community. And I believe that I don't know for sure, but I think they've operated successfully without any complaints as far as goes as noise. So we wouldn't be increasing the units. So if it works now, we would just kind of be balancing what's there. And I don't believe it will have any effect on the community.
Okay, and just to expand, I think about 3 of the other issues that Carter brought up. One of the most helpful things is when we get a weekly construction update. We're getting that from 80 Clarkson Street right now. What to expect. Is a crane coming? What's going to happen this week that can be shared with the community? I see a lot of head nodding, so that's very helpful.
Yes, I mean, Michael should address this, but I believe that the owners would be happy to do so.
Yes, agreed.
Well, having stayed in your facility, I appreciate this request. Carter, do you have any?
Yeah, I was just have you engaged with any of the immediate abutting neighbors just to begin, the dialogue of the construction, and if there are any issues or thoughts that they might have?
Well, we're pretty early in the process, and the approvals are obviously necessary before we can actually think about the construction, but we're certainly willing to do that. Obviously, to one side of this is the existing facility. On the other side is a 1-story building, which is a eating and drinking establishment. But certainly, we'll consult, absolutely. We will be a good neighbor.
Right,
Hello?
Wait a minute, okay. Did you hear me? There are some active block associations in addition to the individual buildings. Bedford Downing and Houston Street might get engaged, so that'd be,
Yeah, there were just originally some concerns, it seems like. I saw a couple names that are still around. And that we don't post these meetings anymore. We used to in the immediate area. So there's not really any way that anybody.
Oh, well, we did. We put up flyers
Okay.
before the weekend, so people who were out and about on the weekend could see it. And we have photographic evidence that we did that, so we did post them.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks.
okay, I see some questions online. Frederica's hand is up. Are you ready?
Thank you. I was going to ask, are there any residential abutters or any abutters who would be adversely affected by the rear yard change? That was my first question.
The answer to that, and I'm just looking, is that there is a 3-story mixed-use residential and commercial building behind lot 27. And as I said, there will be a rear yard. We're not providing no rear yard, which was the case when we built the existing facility. There's a rear yard that with a maximum of 10 feet 9 inches. So it will be reduced. That's true.
Is that a building that's using the rear yard now?
Not that, I'm not aware of how they might use it.
Okay.
It looks like from the area map that they don't have much of a rear yard, actually.
That building is almost built to the lot line.
Yeah, that's what it looks like on the.
So they don't utilize the rear space. They don't even have any rear space to utilize. So.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is, I know that people like Barbara Cohen are like magicians at making the project value just come in just at the total project cost. But is it, what she found was a projected annual return of 0.7%. Is that a valuable business model, 0.7 profit, Michael? Or is that just for the portion that you're adding?
To my understanding, I believe it's just to the portion that we're adding. It
is.
I'm sorry.
It is, yes, that's for the portion, just for the construction of the addition.
Okay, thank you.
Are you done, Frederica?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I see David Gruber has his hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. I was involved with this when you first came to the community board.
I remember.
And as Carter pointed out, some of it, the main concern was on Downing Street. It's an historic street. Whether it was landmarked at the time or not is not significant. It's an historic street. And I take it that there's no egress and ingress from that side, right? From the Downing Street.
That's correct. That was true with the original facility, the existing, and it will remain true. There will be no, there's an emergency egress there now, but in the enlargement, there will be no egress or access to Downing.
Right. The other controversy was the facade, and it fit harmoniously into the Downing Street streetscape. I'm disappointed that we can't repurpose, or you're not proposing to repurpose. By the way, was that the Soros? Did Soros own that building? Do you know?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, because I thought he had a house there. I'm disappointed that you can't incorporate and or repurpose that building somehow into the design, even building on top of it, and then it has to be completely demolished.
It doesn't, the structure wouldn't support building on top of it. And it would also require many more variances to do that, obviously, because the height would have to go up that much higher. Kurt, could you put up the proposed facade just so people can see?
Yeah, can you put up that slide? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're trying, I don't know if you can enlarge the one on the right there, Kurt, so people can see. There's some text there, but it's hard to see about what we're trying to preserve. We wish we could keep it too, but there is literally no way under the code that can be done. And for reasons that I think you can understand, which is you don't want to have people in a rehabilitation facility with, mobility issues in a wood frame construction. It's just not safe.
Can you push it over?
No,
to the-
no, not that one, Kurt, the other side. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And what were you saying about mobility issues?
Well, I'm saying I'm explaining, I guess, why the code wouldn't allow this wood frame construction to be used as a nursing and rehabilitation facility, because it's so combustible. It's just not safe for people who have mobility issues to be resident in a facility that's so highly combustible. So there are very strict requirements for nursing homes in terms of the type of construction that's acceptable.
The new building seems to, proposing a slightly different facade than the original building. Is that something that you'd want to look at again?
Well, the lower portion is meant to be evocative of the existing building. The upper portion, I mean, the architect can speak to the design intent if you'd like him to, and whether, we're always interested in hearing people's views. But Joe, can you speak to the intent of the upper facade?
Yes, so the idea here was, the primary concept was to replicate closely as possible, while aligning the floors and the ceilings, the existing row house that would have to be demolished. We're using the same geometries, as opposed to having the ribbon windows that you see in the newer facade. We were doing single punches as you see in a row house. We were going also to the extent of reusing the lintels that are there. So when we're doing this demolition, we're going to be salvaging the cornice, the lintels, the sills, the door, the railing. We have to look further into this if we're going to replicate the stoop or not, because the stoop is actually an obstruction. It's built onto the sidewalk. So I don't know if it would be beneficial or it would be adversarial that we do this and we make a large obstruction there, but we're going to save the railings, etc. Our intent is to replicate what was there while aligning all the floors up. Above it, we were going to pull in the concept of what was on the left side, which is just a brick portion of the facade. Now, it's very loose as far as color goes right now. Our primary concern is to use a recycled brick that matches closely to the row house that's there. And then we would probably carry that up on top. So the intent is at the street level, it would be perceived as a row house.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're aligning the floor to floor heights, so they don't have a level.
Maybe I'm not understanding something. You're going to demolish this building, and you're very keen on, on duplicating or replicating, some of the old elements, rather than looking at what you're not demolishing, which is the building to the left. And I'm just wondering, that building actually looks pretty successful. I think that it fits into Downing Street pretty well. I'm just wondering why so much attention is being paid to replicate or to be sensitive to a building that you're demolishing, as opposed to carrying on with the facade that's going to be existing.
We thought it would be better received to.
I'm sorry, can you just speak up a little? I'm having a little trouble. My computer is not hearing you.
We thought it would be better received if we were to try to replicate what we were forced to remove in that row house. The ownership has no objection if the community board feels it would be better to continue the left side design and actually make it look as if it's the same building and repeat the rhythm of, let's call it, for lack of a better term, the orange side. It's really not orange. It's just on the screen, and replicate that on the right side and make it the same design. So it would be more uniform and pull it all together. We have no objection to doing that. Our approach in this manner was, we thought the community board would find it better suited, not just to disregard what we're removing. But we're open to suggestions, and I'm open to suggestions. I'm just trying to satisfy everyone involved.
Above the cornice, are you stepping back or is it all one face?
It's all one face.
Yeah, that's really fakey.
So it's a street, you're creating a street wall, really.
Correct.
Yes, the street wall will rise without setback to the height of the building.
Okay.
Okay, I mean,
Again, we're open to suggestions. We thought the community might like the replication, but if it's not something that the community likes, we're certainly open to discussion.
well, you're going to demolish it. It looks so artificial to me as opposed
Yeah,
to,
that's fair. Yeah,
you know.
we understand.
Okay. That's all I have to ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anita, I want to ask Anita a question because it's sort of in the context of this. If they keep if they replicate the old facade, what do you think about these? Do you think we should request more landmark looking townhouse windows? I mean, they're taking away the.
Well, they have the double hung. The upper portion should not look like part of the row house because it's nothing to do with the
No,
row
yeah, but what
house.
about down below? Should it have the multiple lights? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, I see what you mean. Did the old one have that?
Yes, if you push it over, can Kurt push it over to the other side again, please?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they're pretty cute. The problem with the sort of modifying it but keeping it is that the proportions and scale is off. So I don't think it duplicates it, but I do think it's a memory.
You see that it's like fake old. You see that.
It's oldie timey, yeah. But it's all broken once it's above the cornice. I mean, even if you put it down, made it a different color or something, then you at least are.
I mean, you see buildings where they save the facade and then it looks different,
So, well, that's a street that's 60 feet or 80 feet, and then you step back. In this case, even if you step back a foot and painted it brown or blue, or, whatever.
Too much.
It's not trying to be
Different.
yeah, it should just be something else. It's modern, it's new, it's on, a row house is only
It should look like an
three-story
addition.
house, exactly.
Yeah.
Like magic.
Okay.
Beyond. But
Thank you, Anita. That's very helpful. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Arturo.
I have a follow-up question. I think this was to your point, Katie. So do we know what the purpose of this building was, what it was before it was purchased? So you said it was purchased at the end of 23, around the beginning of 24. Who was using it and why?
I think Michael said that it was vacant at the time.
It was built as a residential row.
It was built as built as a residence, absolutely.
Single family, historically.
Yeah.
Probably been many.
But it's from 1899. It's not we have much older row houses. It's a little later in our.
And a lot of them are gone on this back wall of Downing Street.
Okay.
This particular one, is it in the landmark district?
No.
I couldn't understand what they just said
It's
about
not-
this.
It's not in
this house.
It's not in
No,
the
it's
city
not. Okay.
district, but it is in the state and national.
I mean, I like the nod to it. Why not? You have to get inspiration for something somewhere. So, it's not a replica by any means.
But it does look a little odd because then the upper floors duplicate the building on the left.
Well, that's why it has to be
Yeah.
separated more. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you have to at least really
But we could
say it's meant to
Separate
be
building.
new looking,
New construction.
Okay.
more intentional, I guess.
My
I think
follow-up.
we appreciate what you're saying, and the discussion I think was meant to evoke some, we like the idea of the uniformity. I think it would look, cleaner as an entirety of the building, to some of the points that Mr. Gruber was making. It was really just to try and preserve something, a piece of history or whatnot, or we can incorporate certain elements where, the door can stay, or something in that regard where we can hybridize this should you wish. But, for our purposes, a more uniform building would also be easier to construct.
My follow-up question to where I was going with that was, it does seem to me, given the current state of housing, unfortunate to take a home or potentially multiple units away from this neighborhood. For one, is that, are you comfortable with that? And secondly, would you be open to incorporating a mixed use here with housing for potential residents?
Well, can I address that? This is a single family home, that's how I understand it was used before it was vacant. So but you're right, it is one unit of housing. But the need for these rehabilitation and nursing beds is so great. And I just don't think that the project would make economic sense if they can't get the 20 beds. And the only way to get the 20 beds is to use the entirety of this very small lot. So I understand where you're coming from. We all, the housing crisis is very real, but there's also this, on the other hand, a very real crisis for these beds, and enlarging the existing facility makes a lot more sense than trying to build a new one somewhere else. And this is what's available. So, and I just don't think the mixed use would result in a viable project.
I have a question.
Can I ask?
Wait a minute. We have several people with their hands up. We'll get to everyone.
I have just a short question.
What's your question, David?
From the time that you get all your approvals and shovels are ready to go into the ground, what's your construction schedule on this residential street? How long is this going to take?
Joe, do you have an answer for that?
It's very early in the game. We haven't even executed construction documents, gone out to bid. It would be very difficult to answer that question at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go Anita, Carter, Frederica.
Yes, I just wanted, could you zoom out or from this image? Is there any place that shows the building next door to this? Somehow I think this is a very tiny street, Downing Street. Those buildings on the left are pretty massive for a very tiny, unique, diagonal street.
Yeah,
So,
Kurt, I think we could show Google Street View.
Yeah.
Because the building next door is a one-story, as I mentioned, it's a one-story commercial building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bar, the big
Yes,
place.
yes.
Well,
Yes,
which is
it's a bar.
very cool architecturally, I think.
Yes, it
like
is.
that.
Yes,
But
it's
I'm
a cool-
thinking, we're talking right up now about this old building, the scale. It would be nice to have it just be one uniform thing from a practical point of view. But I also think that it would be very nice to step down the street scale. So you don't adding another big wall, that if you can respond to this very cool building by doing something different, not, don't go with a complete 8-story street wall on this.
No, it's only, it's 6 stories, but you're right, it's 77 feet. I think the issue with that is that it will lose beds. It's a very tight space, so getting the 20.
I'm encouraging you not to get rid of the old, what you were trying out here. I mean, you just have to work harder, but it's the nod towards the history and the smaller scale. I think it would be beneficial here, especially because of A, the building next door is a low scale, and B, the size of this little tiny street.
Thank you, Anita. Carter, you're up.
Yeah, I just want to say in no way, shape, or form should any of my personal comments be construed to reduce the number of beds, because I think that hasn't been stated here, how critically important this facility is and adding beds is. As somebody who has gone to visit people there and waited for people to get placement there to stay in our community as opposed to being elsewhere. But the point that I was trying to make is just, have you done the best efforts to balance that with the actual construction itself in a way that just mitigates the concerns? And I think that this is a very good this is a great step. Was anybody questioning it? Are there little tweaks involved that could make it better? And obviously, the path of least resistance for your needs is maybe not always, there are little tweaks in there that could be done. And I think you're hearing some of that, but no way is that to diminish the importance of watching you guys expand. I mean, it's a great opportunity that you've been afforded, because I don't think you could build a new facility, right? I mean, that's adding on is a big first step to that. But that's what I was bringing up the comments of, and I just wanted to make that
Yeah.
just really clear, because we all, I think,
Yeah.
have known
It's a
people.
local place.
Yeah,
Love that.
Very
Yeah.
important. We're so fortunate.
We don't have many of I just want to make sure that was said. Just, but I guess that's just why I asked, had you engaged with anybody on the street to make sure that, you know, if there's any way to tweak it, that they wouldn't be upset with the final product of, you know, a way to incorporate both.
And you're speaking strictly on the aesthetics, right?
Yeah, I mean, just that seems to be the main issue, even though it's outside of a district. And frankly, this is also what we might see more of, right? So each example is pointed on. In the future, people point to examples from the past as a precedent of doing this. And there's a lot of examples that, you know, that we could think of where this might happen. But just like this shot really shows, you know, what the building is, and versus if it's built out, you know, and having the straight facade is complicated. So
Yeah, I'm not an aesthetic. That's not my field, but any color above that would recede or maybe mimic Houston Hall might make it less jarring.
Yeah, I think that's the point, as what we're trying to get to, is that not just another glass facade or curtain wall construction, but something that, you know, has a nod to the very beautiful, fun building next to it. Why not? This is site specific.
It brings it together.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Carter said it best. We know this is very important. You're a very important part of our community, and we do appreciate that. And we like being able to talk to you, you know, in a back and forth here. Frederica?
I agree about the importance, and I really am amazed at the effort that you're proposing to make about, as Anita put it, the nod to the old building. I think that it would be worth it, a little more money maybe, to get better windows than what you show there. Windows that are closer to the original with the not only double hung, but the pane. Right. And then there's a bigger difference between the first 3 floors and the new construction above. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you, Frederica. I agree with you. Okay, is there anyone from the public who wants to speak on this? Do we have anybody in the public?
Not seeing any hands.
Okay. Seeing no more questions in the room. Thank you very much, Julie and all the members of the team. And we will be discussing this in business session.
Pete Davies, does he have his hand up?
Sorry.
Pete Davies started his hand.
Oh, Pete has his hand up? Oh, thank you. Oh, good. I'm just seeing that now. Thank you. You're promoting him? Pete, are you ready?
Yeah. He always just let him speak.
Yeah, permit him to speak, please.
There he is.
Hi, Pete.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to comment on the incredibly distressing lack of beds in downtown Manhattan that this is attempting to address. The utter lack of planning by this city in regard to providing for the citizens for health-related situations is really disturbing. So I understand the need for some aesthetics on this, but I think we got to support this in the most strong terms. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate your comment. I'm going to say strong terms. I'm putting that down. Okay, now.
Need it to be beautiful and fantastic, okay?
Okay.
One doesn't eliminate the other.
Okay, thank you so much, Village Center for Care team. We're going to go on to next topic. Where's Lauren? Why don't you come up to the table, please? I know. I'd like to introduce everyone to Lauren Leiker. Is that how you pronounce it? Lauren is our fellow.
Nice.
Land Use Research Fellow from the Fund for the City of New York. She is currently a master's student in design and urban ecology at Parsons, which is now called Parsons School of Design at the new school officially. She has a BA from Vassar. She worked with AmeriCorps in the Poughkeepsie City School District, and she has a lot of wonderful aspirations for society, and she's working towards achieving them for us. And she's here to talk a little bit about she has a presentation about the work that she's doing for Community Board 2 this year. So nice to meet you, and thank you for coming tonight.
The best way for me to share the slides.
Are you in the Zoom?
Yeah, I can join the Zoom. Do you think I should
Okay.
share my screen?
Yeah, if you could share the screen, that would be the easiest.
Well, it's nice to meet everybody. Sorry.
Panelist, or are you in?
Let me see real quick.
You must be panelist.
She's joining right now.
Oh, you haven't joined yet, okay.
Thank you, Arturo, for IT support over there.
All right, she just joined.
There she is. She's on the attendee list.
I'll promote you to panelist, so you can share your screen. Have your camera on in order to share your screen.
Interesting building history that Pete put up in the chat.
Oh,
Downing.
I've got to see that.
Okay. I put in my notes, I forgot to delete it, but I'm very nervous, so I'm sorry if I talk really fast because I'm kind of scared to do this. So this is part of a presentation that we were asked to create to share what direction we think our project is going to go in to the other fellows in my program and to the people who direct it. So I will say I have yet to come up with an interesting title, so I hope to change that at some point. But so far we were thinking that my project would be about affordable housing and specifically looking at rent control and rent stabilized units. Part of what they asked us to do was to present some background on the community board that we were placed in, which I'm sure you guys are already very familiar with. But after looking at the project proposal that was submitted and talking with Arturo, we sort of landed up looking at housing affordability in Community Board 2. And so my research questions, which I think are still subject to change, are focused on identifying where in Community Board 2 affordable housing is located, specifically looking at units that are rent controlled or rent stabilized, in order to see if, but sort of now the question is more like how many of these units have been lost over the past like 2-ish decades, to then ask where are potential sites for new affordable housing developments. So part of what we were asked to do was also to look at the statement of district needs to figure out how our project fit into the other priorities of the community board at large. And so far, to me, this project has sort of two parts coming from both the work we've done so far and the statement of district needs. So the first part would be the sort of data collection and analysis piece, but then also looking at where new housing can be built. So this issue of losing rent controlled units that do currently exist has been mentioned in not only this, but previous year's statement of district needs, and has been brought up in other reports and conversations I'd had. And I was hoping my work could kind of be giving the numbers and the data and the maps and the specific information to really back what people are talking about and show how big of an issue it is. And then the other part of this project, which seems on par with some of the other work happening in this committee, like the Gansevoort Square project, but like on a smaller scale, or the proposition for 2 Howard Street, would be looking at like city or state-owned land that could be utilized differently and maybe be transitioned into affordable housing. And then sort of connecting this idea of housing to some of the other issues that have been mentioned in the district needs and how access to housing can sort of be a foundation to mitigate some of the other social problems that were mentioned. So this is part of what I've come up with so far. The first map is any building that had at least one rent-controlled unit, and the second map is any building that lost at least one rent-controlled unit from 2007 to 2017. So about 67% of the buildings lost rent-controlled units, and on average, they lost about a quarter of the rent-controlled units.
I'm just going to ask a question. Do you mean rent controlled or rent regulated? Because rent controlled and rent stabilized are together under rent regulated.
Rent control is like post-World War II, rent stabilization is the 70s going forward.
So I say it's rent regulated. I think that it's both rent controlled and rent stabilized.
Both classes.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, so-
Rent regulated there.
Okay, that's great.
That's better.
Okay, thank you.
And just for clarity, because you may not be able to get them both, the clarity on the data is to define them in anything you do. Just so people understand the difference, because that's a common
Yeah.
issue, because it's all rent control is much more complicated and different and
fewer, are there fewer?
And they're much.
Many more,
at this
yeah.
point.
Many fewer.
Because the rent control, the people, they go away, when the people.
They go bye-bye
That's a-
eventually.
No, I think that's really helpful I want to make sure it's as clear as possible, because part of what we were talking about too is trying to, we're right now, looking at some data sets and doing a lot of coding, but trying to make it really clear and replicable so that other community boards or people interested in this work could do it again. So I think being really clear about what I mean is really important. So I appreciate that.
Great if it can be more broadly applicable. Thank you.
And this is just another map that looks at sort of the potential for the second part of the project. So this would be historic districts, but then city or owned or leased property. We talked about what potential sites for new housing would look like, looking at the large avenues at non-landmarked areas, like Soho or Hudson Square or the waterfront. And this is a slide sort of just looking at the different sort of data sets you have to look at. As far as I know, and we haven't run into, there's no list of every rent regulated unit in the city. You kind of have to look at a lot of different places. So we're looking at code that someone published to GitHub, and we're trying to add more recent data to it, because obviously 2017 is a while ago. So that's part of what we're doing now, is adding more recent data to it.
Thanks to Eugene for that. I think you shared that link, the GitHub link.
Yeah, that was I forget the name of, it was all due to one guy who had gone through the tax rolls.
Yeah, he went through a mega script of so many data sets.
So I'm working with a couple of my professors now that know how to use Python to try to add the more recent data to it. So that's sort of a project this next semester. And this is just a brief timeline to go over my next steps. Mostly, I'm really interested in hearing any feedback and suggestions about what you guys might think.
I think that's a great resource for us to have, because as you've seen, there is no source. The state, the city, for whatever reason, has not published a master list.
Wow.
And everyone, no one believes that.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
But we know anecdotally that we have lost a tremendous number of units. They've fallen out of stabilization and out of rent control. And it's a shame. Because that has been a tremendous resource that is going away.
Did anybody share with you Jane's report that he did for Community Board 8 in June 2020? I'll send it to you. I've shared it with this committee multiple times. It's titled Changes in Rent Stabilized Housing in Manhattan and Community District 8, and he has this whole methodology.
Yeah. That would be really helpful to look at.
It's a main
right
that's used by a lot of folks.
Do you have Lauren's email?
Yeah, I can. I'll add you right now.
I have a question. You had one of the slides where you overlaid the historic districts, and we have obviously a large number of historic districts. What is, I guess, the thesis, or why are you looking at the historic districts specifically?
I know there's I think, is it more complicated to build or renovate in those areas? So maybe looking outside of them or looking more briefly in them to just make sure that if I do talk about proposing a specific site, just understanding reasonably where it's placed and like it's like, you know, whether or not it could be like be built sort of. So I think this map was more to help me understand how the district is set up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think to the kind of third part of her kind of the way that she framed it, part of it is like respecting the neighborhood character and desire, and obviously, you know, kind of like minimizing backlash essentially, right? If we can respect the neighborhood's character while also building housing, you know, that will be the least path of resistance, right? To get
that'll be the most palatable to the community, right?
Exactly.
Right, and most efficient use of time. Why don't you have state and federal owned or leased property on this map too? Could it be added? I mean,
I looked for it. This was from data from NYC Open Data. I could look for state and federal owned property. When I looked that up on like that data set, the only thing that came up was city owned, but I also was interested in looking at state.
Okay, great. Oh, that's
which agency had passed us the was it DCP that had passed us the beta where they showed?
Yes, I think it was DCP.
Okay, I'll have to look. There is a map that DCP has maintained that has a list of government-owned land. So it includes state and federal. So 2 Howard, that's a federal property. But right, there's also the state level.
But it doesn't, but I'm interested that she has
the
leased, but she also has leased. And we haven't seen anything with state or federal leased, you know, which could be good to add, to understand. I mean, I always wonder who owns 201 Varick.
The Passport Building?
It's got Passport Building, VA, post office. It used to have a prison in it, an immigration prison.
Yeah, I think it's federal. I always thought it was.
I know, but do they own it or do they lease it?
I think they own it.
You know, the Goldman has his office there. Yeah. So, you know, that's a whole city block.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I always assumed that.
I always assumed it was federal. Yeah.
yeah, me too, but it doesn't appear on any list. We don't know, you know, yeah. So anyways, we're just adding cheers. Sorry.
If I could maybe suggest an additional question that's pertinent to us is, you know, the residents in our district that are the most vulnerable to displacement, that is something that's been a concern. And it's difficult to kind of tease some of that out because I think if we take a look at, let's say, Chinatown, for example, a lot of those residences are probably not like on the books, right? Is my understanding, like there's a lot of families crammed into like on unofficial types of places, things like that. That's been my understanding.
Well,
I don't know.
they also, I mean, when buildings get run down and aren't maintained, they can be demolished.
Right.
Right. And that's how tenants are ultimately removed.
Right.
Because there's not too many other ways except to tear it down.
Right, when the building is considered not suitable for habitation, right? Yeah.
I think that's a really good idea, though. I think that I don't remember the exact name of it, but I think that there was an organization that did sort of like a housing vulnerability index. I don't know exactly what data they were looking at, but it sort of mapped like the areas that were most prone to people being vulnerable to displacement. So I could look at that and see what that looked like in community board too, and just look at the information they looked at to see
That
if it would be
came up
relevant.
when we had the Soho, NoHo, and Chinatown rezoning that was happening. And so that was a big concern of the community, is that the areas that were considered the most, you know, that could produce the most housing tended to be on the outskirts of our district and of the rezoning area. And they also tended to be the smaller tenement, you know, I mean, they're very attractive for a developer because they're small buildings. So if you can replace a small 4-story building with a 20-story
But they have a lot of units in them. And they've been there forever, and it's very hard to get that many units back. So
and
as we've been learning. And
there's like a language barrier as well to get in touch with those residents, where it's difficult to understand how many people are actually living in some of those buildings. But that's in our backyard.
It's interesting,
Katie?
some of that anecdotally has come from people who are trying to do the census over the years.
Yeah.
And who've waited outside of buildings.
Yeah,
Some
and
of the
that
dedicated
community.
Folks, and I'm thinking of somebody who's not with us anymore, but she used to be very adamant about accurate counts in
For the census.
the southeast section of our community board.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because some of the populations are not so easily
Well, I've heard there's like a big,
who they are and what the family structures look like.
yeah,
So-
there's like a big inherent mistrust of government and speaking to anyone from a government agency. And so there's like a mistrust, they don't want to speak to census. I mean, the census should be neutral. But it's difficult to get those counts.
It's also been scooped in a way somehow. I don't know. It's like the border is one that makes it desirable to tear it down. I guess.
Yeah, because it's not an historic district, right? But it's also can be like part of. It's
very vulnerable.
It's considered Soho when it's attractive to build.
Right. Soho
Right.
East.
And right.
That's right. I want to thank Pete Davies because while we were talking, he was able to look up 201 Barrack, and it is owned by the federal government,
Oh,
and
that's
it's
great.
huge.
Look at
80,000
square feet.
930.
It's a million gross floor, and you could go
Giant,
higher there probably.
We could fit a couple apartments in there.
I hope so.
We must have
All
empty
sorts of
space.
So,
So I mean, I think this research will be great. I mean, there's like a big, real application to that data. And I think it would help our community. And there's a lot of just social constructs that are also like problematic. Like we have parts of Chinatown, but Chinatown's also split between us and CB, which one is it? CB1?
The Italians. So it's mixed bag. That's what makes it so interesting too.
Yeah, it would also be helpful if it can be added into going forward, or if there's a methodology outline for it to be built on. I just, a lot of times these end up being static and
unable to be like
unable
updated.
to re-look at what was
Reproduce and make it public.
to note the changes year to year. So as we go forward.
I mean, we're going, you're going through that right now and trying to incorporate some of the most recent DHCR roles and, that kind of data, because that's not in the existing GitHub. So she's figuring it out. So, yeah.
Well, he's got interested people.
Yes.
Very great.
Frederica has her hand up.
This is a little tangential, and I'm not sure if it's part of your mission, but it certainly would be easy to do. There's something called the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act that allowed churches and mosques and synagogues to build affordable housing. And I wondered if that would be a gathering all the possible sites that we might see affordable housing there. It would be so easy to do, and it might come in handy at a later date.
Yeah, I think I could look into that. I think that yeah. I haven't heard of that before, but I think that would be easy to add to something like this.
Thank you.
But just be cautious, because Trinity Church owns a great deal of our community board, and that's not for sale or for. They are renting that out, commercially. So, but anyway, it'd be good to note it, but it's not something.
I'm talking about various churches, synagogues, and mosques in.
Absolutely.
CB2. Yes.
Absolutely. But if she pulls up religious institutions, she's going to see, Trinity Church. So I'm just adding to the knowledge base. That's all. You're right, Frederica. Good point.
But it would be good to also understand which are the city-owned lots that are around us. I mean, the Gansevoort project, that was one where we talked about it organically, like at the end of last year. And then the city announced their development project, in December. And so it's kind of an instance where obviously we weren't part of that discussion. But, they had been looking at that piece of land as a place to develop housing. And, we hadn't really been having that discussion.
Right.
Are there other pieces of property similar to that that we should be aware of at this point? I don't think there's too many left in our district because we're very overbuilt.
We're also underbuilt in some areas.
That's true, yeah.
And a part of this is, as I've certainly brought up, how do we put things where they belong and where they can fit in a way that works, as opposed to what we see as sort of polarization of this topic, for lack of a better term. And, there are a lot of behind the scenes discussions as well that happen in very preliminary stages that we're not really involved with that could actually better this. But construction works on a timeline and you make money through speed, et cetera. But the benefit from identifying some areas worthy of discussion would benefit all of us, with some of the areas, and we have limitations on zoning. There's a much larger conversation, but this could be very informative to that. And time just moves on and developers build, and we don't get good outcomes in some areas where they could be better. We get worse outcomes in others. So fostering a better discussion is really important.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, I think we have item number 4, which Eugene has agreed to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my God. It was a lot less scary than I thought it was going to be.
What's the overall timeline for
I think we're supposed to be done in April.
in April?
Yeah.
Okay.
End
All
of
right.
term.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's good to finally.
I'm
Nice to meet
looking
everyone.
forward to it.
And thanks to Arturo for his partnership, or however you.
Your incubator.
Advisor, mentor, counsel, I don't know.
Oh, Frederica, you have your hand raised?
Well, are we gonna, I'm thinking about the applicants who are online waiting for us to discuss their projects. Are we gonna do that before we talk about Gansevoort Square, or what?
Well, then they can leave, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have.
I think
Agenda here.
Because we're going into business session to discuss Gansevoort Square, right?
We are going into business session to discuss Gansevoort, yes.
So we could do these 2 applications first, maybe?
Any of them online?
Is there any
If they're
objection?
still here.
Doing
It's a
those
good
two
idea.
online?
Why not?
Yeah.
Valerie,
Could dispose of
Toby,
them.
Roy Ruiz, Pete.
Are there any applicants online?
I mean, I think 246 left.
Michael Schreiber is on, and last I saw Judy was on.
Yes, I'm still on.
246 left.
246 left, though. Although let's do them
Yeah, I think we should do them.
Let's do them in order. 246. Let's speak frankly. Anyone like to start the discussion for
Yeah, I mean, to me,
246?
Started it, yeah.
it's just a no-brainer, they just, I think it's great, have a cafe to enliven the street and all of that. They got a development bonus for that.
When they got
it, and now
They're taking it back.
They're taking it back, right?
Wait, so wait, what are we?
We're going with discussing 246.
246.
I guess my only concern is that this has already been approved by the city.
No. This is a new application.
The last one, right? It was.
So when they came before us in 2020, the community board recommended not moving forward, but the chair but CPC
chairperson
grant them.
Did grant it.
And they did that in 2012 also.
And they didn't use that approval.
Correct.
So to me, it just sounds like they're gonna get approved. If this is sorry, let me speak, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me speak. I let you speak, so let me speak.
Okay.
Stop arguing.
Another year.
Tedious.
So if it's basically the same plan, it's safe to assume they're probably gonna be approved again. I think as a committee, it does us a disservice. Now I kind of negotiate with them on maybe even like reducing the width on an end, like increasing the amount of area that people can walk through and just taking a no position. I don't know, I feel like, yes, like we're speaking up on behalf of the community folks. A lot of folks said that they don't want it. But I'm also just feeling, why aren't we negotiating to maybe make this better, knowing that it's gonna end up getting approved?
You know, a lot of times, many times, this comes up, just what you're saying, and people take a position like, well, if you don't negotiate, you're not in the game. And other people take the position like we did with City of Yes, for example, most recently, which was a big deal. Sometimes it's really important to say no if your answer is no. And just because you know you could be overturned by the city, but if you're going to constantly fold because you know you're going to be overturned by the city, you're always going to be in the middle of the road. So I can hardly see anything more blatant land grab come up. So yeah, if the city overturns it, the city overturns it. I mean, we have Trump too, things we believe in are going to be overturned. But to me, in this moment in time, when we have Trump being president, it's even more important than ever to take a firm stand if you believe something, especially something so clear cut.
I just want to point out, therefore be it resolved in 2020.
The 2021?
Therefore be it resolved, CB2 recommends denial of this application and asks to be notified if the applicant makes another request for a private cafe on this public plaza. So actually we were notified. Be it further resolved that if this or any other certification of a privatization of public space for any reason is granted over the recommendation of CB2, the local council member is encouraged to oppose. And finally, in general, CB2 encourages our electeds to oppose turning over privately owned public space to developers for commercial infill purposes within CB2. So I think in 2020, we took a position not about this space, but sort of philosophically about the turning over. And I think it was a very strong position. And I think we could still defend it because they got a lot upstairs. I went to a wedding reception upstairs and it is gorgeous.
There are additional.
Up on the top, and it has a beautiful view, and that's worth so much money. And we just wanted a little space down below in compensation. So I just wanted to review what we did in the past.
Yeah, I'll just add, I don't think there's a lot to negotiate because it's a fairly narrow one lane, but it actually is taking a public area to use as an engagement and advertising point and revenue generating to bring people in when, just even putting that there changes the whole tenor and tone of an accessible public outdoor area. It's
not welcoming, right?
Yeah. And I think that get to the point it's not welcoming and over activation through something that's a little higher end, not necessarily as accessible, it's only open in the evenings. That doesn't actually help promote what this area is, where it's hurting is the daytime activation for businesses and somewhere where people work can go, that they can be in and they don't have to spend money. And, we heard that through the pandemic quite a bit from the business owners in Hudson Square. In fact, many of them mentioned they took a significant loss on their ground floor areas in order to have those amenities for the workers through that time period. So I don't know if taking a table or two off or changing is going to change the objections.
If I could add, I think since 2020, since this resolution, I think we've realized that public space is even more important to us. I think, because of the pandemic and having lived through that and realizing that that's a precious part of our community. All of us are spending more time in our community than before. And it's important to have places to go that are not your apartment.
Although I will say, as a lifelong city dweller, there's something reassuring about having something there at night when there are maybe not a lot of people having lunch and on the benches, and instead you have this sort of dark, unsurveyed, unoccupied space. So from that point of view, I think it's a plus, because I think it really does add some life and some surveillance.
But that, when we asked
security.
if they would make it like what you might have at 23rd Street or, in.
Yeah, no, I get that point. Yeah.
Madison
Kiosks,
Square,
that kind of
where it's open to everybody.
Much more casual. This is not casual.
An extension of their is.
Yeah. So maybe that's what we could also add in a way that it's adaptable by day. Open, bring your coffee, bring your lunch, whatever. And at night, maybe there could be, more private
A
time.
dinner area. It's.
Well, most people don't sit out in the middle of a
In the
weird
dark.
sort of
Right.
passageway in New York City at night in an
Yeah.
area that is not super occupied
Right.
at nighttime. So it's just kind of creepy. I mean, I know my city. I know where I'm working and where I'm not.
But they just spent all this money on it
Okay.
to redo all the lighting and everything else, to revitalize it, so.
But revitalization comes from people, eyes looking,
I go-
not lighting.
If we had access, I'd go sit over there,
Oh, okay.
and that's supposed to be.
You're one of
open
those
space.
creeps now. I'm kidding.
Well, the breezeway is also closed off.
Yeah.
We've all, our pubs
Ours are all closed off. I
They're all
know, I
And
know.
to
boarded
be
up.
fair to Darlene, who actually lives there,
Yeah.
she says it's not creepy at night.
Yeah.
She's there every day.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm a
That's
Jane Jacobs disciple, and if you don't have people or
Yeah.
cars or
But
activity.
what about clear windows with the restaurant looking on the space?
That helps, yeah.
No, but that's what's there.
Could we go to Frederica and
You know,
David?
it's
Fair
there.
enough. Good point.
Thank you. I actually thought Darlene's testimony was pretty compelling. And my favorite part of the presentation was when the restaurant guy said that they had allowed the Girl Scouts to be in the plaza.
I know.
I mean, I
So generous.
think that speaks to their attitude. I want to apologize for jumping in so quickly at the beginning, but I got fired up by Sean's letter and then by Bo's approach to interviewing the guy. I'm listening to what you're saying. I don't think that we could, I don't think we can go back on the bonus promise without actually referencing it in a strong way. And I would find it hard to go back on our opinion about privatizing public property. But if we feel that things have changed and there is a interest in it, then I think it's really important for that cafe restaurant to be able to be accessed by people who don't have to go into the hotel. Because if you have to go into the hotel, it's a statement. It's a private place.
Absolutely.
Why should you have to go into a private place to get to a public place?
That's right.
So,
That
and
makes
I would also encourage them, why can't they have a sidewalk cafe over on a sidewalk rather than in the plaza?
I think they should have a big sign.
Yeah, I wouldn't
acknowledging that it's a
discourage them from
public-
doing that, but I want to just lastly say that if we decide to go that route where we see the inevitable that it's going to be approved, then our reso could say that we recommend denial for the following reasons, but if it's going to be approved by the chair, then we recommend the following changes to the design.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think John also has his hand up, but we can't.
Thank you.
John Paul, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, there it is.
Sorry.
I'll
we-
just- Wait a minute, there it is. There it is again. No, it's gone. There it is. All right.
All right. You have the floor, John.
Thanks. What was the city council person's position on it last time? It sounded our
In
last.
2020?
Yeah.
Right?
Did he?
I don't think-
It's not the city council, it's the chair of CPC who does these certifications.
I know, but in the resolution, I think CB2 had specifically asked the local council member.
I don't see any, I don't see any,
I think
reference
those things
to-
are just pipe dreams when we put them in, so.
who was Johnson, was Corey in 2020? Still in 2020? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it was still Corey.
For the election, yeah.
So he wasn't paying.
Well, they often disappoint us when it gets to that level. So much for community.
I think Frederica said it during the presentation. I think it's gonna probably go. I guess we're hoping that the attitudes have changed towards public space. I don't know how realistic that is. I could see them just giving it again. The guy said he was open for suggestions. I threw like a revenue share I threw out there. I got a couple chuckles, but I wasn't kidding. I put in a couple other suggestions in the chat. Provide a portion of the proceeds to local cause, schools, nonprofits, host farmer market, host nonprofit fundraisers.
Could we go up in that a little?
Just finish. Free public amenities like Wi-Fi or charging stations, something that would benefit the people while it's not even there. And then I'm open to other suggestions. I like Frederica's.
The district change.
So it seems like it's going to happen. I appreciate the idea of taking the strong position. Shouldn't be used. It's going back on a deal. But if we're thinking it's going to come in, maybe engage in dialogue or make suggestions, deny unless type thing.
Hi, David.
The problem with the, can I just say the problem with, oh, sorry, David. Go ahead.
No, let's go ahead. Finish your thought.
Thank you. The problem with deny unless is that it opens the door to recommend.
Yeah. It's been my mantra for all the years I've been on the community board that we need to do what we think is right, not anticipate what a government agency may or may not do. And we should be on record for doing things that we think is the right way. I know many people have said that this evening just now. I think that we should deny this, be consistent in our denials. They did get a huge FAR bonus to do this. It's a matter of design with these cafes. He could show it on a plan and say, yeah, people want to sit down and come. But really, we've had this issue with Elizabeth Street Garden. We've had it with Silver Towers. We've had it with lots of things where you design things and you don't feel it's a public space in its design, and you feel it's privatized. And if there's anything that feels privatized, as someone said, if you have to go into the restaurant, even if you don't, it could be designed to say, you can't come in here. This is a private space. Now, if they had suggested a kiosk that made the place more public, then I would say, okay, that's something I might go for. There's plenty of parks and places that have small kiosks that don't say, this is private, don't enter. But that's not what they want. They want outdoor seating for the restaurant. And no matter what this restaurateur says, if it's going to be designed that way, especially if the main entry is through the hotel. I think that this community board should turn it down, not worry about what the city planning will do or not do, and be consistent in our resos. That's my opinion.
Thank you, David. I agree with David in terms of the aspect of having it look like it's public space versus private. I mean, I think, asking them how you're going to access the space and their responses about, oh, you can walk in, but there's going to be a host, so anyone that doesn't know that it's a public space is just going to automatically assume this completely belongs to the hotel, and they're not going to attempt to sit down, right? I think it's designed to be unwelcome unless you're a paying customer, you're going to buy a burger or whatever. I mean, their whole purpose is to make money. They're not really caring if it's public space. If someone's going to sit there, right?
Formal.
I mean, if anything, I would like a sign or some acknowledgement to let the public know that they walk by that this is public space. You can feel free to sit on these.
Take that French fry.
There's a,
okay.
But it's like this, Carter.
Yeah, all the pops have a placard. They all have.
Yeah, but they're not big or.
No, but you can,
They're there.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Not including the
How
rest.
did that
It's
get?
this big. It's on Google. One of the pictures, that Darlene had sent to us.
Who reads a sign when they look at those tables and they,
Well, if you have a ribbon and also we don't know, they might come with planters and, it's going to be, that's not what.
No, they're clear about it.
No.
if they're gonna put the tape on the
Tag or whatever it is, and maybe it'll become a little palm tree and. Which,
Did you have Cafe
City
Creek?
council district has changed.
it's
I
meant
could
to
be
be
wrong.
separate.
I think the city council district has moved, and Darlene may know better, or somebody else, but I think the boundary went a little north.
We hear in the
Oh.
chat, it's marked, I think it might be Pete who says.
Oh, it's
in
Marquez.
Yeah, so I was just looking, it's right on the border.
Oh, okay.
So, for just bringing that up because.
That's interesting,
it's a
actually.
Different engagement point
Right.
than it
Yeah.
was previously.
And it's a Michelin restaurant. I mean, it's going,
It's fancy, yeah.
yeah, it's gonna look
fancy.
very off-putting.
None of this casual stuff there. Uh-uh. Well, I think I like what David said also.
I mean, I think we have a
support that.
responsibility to remind everyone of the initial.
Right,
Of the initial deal,
yes.
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And, the next time this comes up, I think the next land use committee will be pulling up our resolution and reading that as well. And so I think it's our obligation to
Good
put
point.
it in that.
Because they've got to come back every 3 years.
Right, they've got to come back every
Right.
3 years. And I think we've got to stay strong on our initial, our disgust at losing a public space.
I think that Valerie has her hand up. She might have something to
I'm promoting her to that.
say. And Jean-Paul, has his hand up as well.
Let's take Valerie first, and then John Paul will come back to you. Hi, Valerie.
Oh, hey, really quickly, I just thought I would point out that that we are expecting a sidewalk cafe application at this address.
Interesting.
So I was gonna throw that in the mix.
Yeah.
I think that's quite what they said.
They said they weren't planning it.
No, right?
And they said.
I can give you the date. I can give you the
They
date.
said they would lose parking spaces and that would bother
Right.
their customers.
Right, they did say
That's
that.
That was for the road.
That's-
Oh, roadbed, that was
Oh,
the
sorry,
road.
I'm
This
sorry.
is
That was
for
the road.
sidewalk. No.
Sorry.
This is a sidewalk cafe application, and it was sent in. They submitted it on August 3rd.
Interesting. Thank you,
Very
Valerie.
Yeah, no
interesting,
problem.
very interesting.
Thanks, Valerie.
Very useful.
They would,
Yeah.
we asked if they
And
would,
we asked them point blank.
Yeah.
and they didn't really, they were non-responsive ultimately.
They gave us
There might be a different operator or something. He spoke from his
Yeah.
voice.
They pursue
This was a
saying,
Michelin thing. Maybe it's a different kind of thing.
but we asked, someone asked them,
Yeah.
did they say they wouldn't apply? And they.
Yeah.
Right, you had asked.
Oh, you're
No, they
right.
said that they
That's
hadn't
right.
considered it, that they hadn't thought about it.
Right.
Which of course.
I'm giving him the benefit of
Recently.
that.
He's like, "Look at the last
Since
second."
August.
That's what I reminded him.
Okay, that's very
Okay.
helpful,
I
Valerie.
have one more
Yeah.
point. The contact name associated with it is Ruben at vestrynyc.com.
Ruben and Vestry.
Ruben and it's vestrynyc.com.
Oh, okay. All right.
The restaurant.
Whatever that entity
Okay.
that is.
Okay.
Yep, thanks.
I see. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And I think I remember Darlene in the chat had said there was a story about the amplified speakers.
Yeah.
She had submitted some photographs to us by email.
Okay.
But she had the wrong address, so I advised her of the new address, so.
Okay.
it should be forwarded.
Okay. But it sounds like it sounds like I'm just reading from the chat.
Yeah, they're right on the
They-
wall, bolted on there, just there, so.
Well,
Just in
again, they
case.
said, oh, we don't use them.
Just in case.
Just
Just in case there's a good ball game on or
Yeah.
something.
But it sounds like they have used them.
Is there a way to, can we, for modifications or suggestions? I'm still, given that they were kind of inauthentic about their intentions about applying for a sidewalk cafe, that's disappointing. But could we still make suggestions because I still get the feeling that it's going to go through, but it would be nice to incorporate some of the suggestions that have been made about reducing the larger width on the north side, opening up the space to enter from the outside, and funding some sort of programming or public benefit.
I just think the problem with that is if we want to make a point about the fact that this bonus was given to the developer originally in exchange for the publicly, the open space. That's what happened. I don't think we should help them. We can entertain their suggestions maybe, but I don't think we should help them thwart the actual reason and the rationale behind this program. I mean, we have to uphold it, I think.
And just on top of that, what you're suggesting actually promotes the business even more. It actually doesn't open it to the public more. You're giving them a brand new entrance. And in a way that actually privatizes the plaza, which they don't use as an entrance now. Even though they have the doors, you're actually creating a third wall facade to sell the space for them, which is kind of counter. It's more beneficial to them than to anybody else, even in a reduction of the space. And we hear this all the time from restaurants. Oh, we just need 2 tables and 4 chairs so people can see us from down the block. So now we have in a whole as advertising, right? And they take a big hit on that and doesn't even generate the money often to pay back. So I that's why I just.
Well, but I'm a little bit concerned now because Valerie says the person who's coming to her is from the restaurant. We didn't hear anybody from the restaurant.
They're all the same.
No, they said, they stated
the ground floor is all part of, it may be a concession agreement through the operator, but the whole hotel is encompassed within a hotel license.
So we can't be worried about that.
It used to be different. When it was Koi, it was a separate entity that leased that space.
So it's
But now it's a
operating.
concession agreement that is under the hotel and their liquor
It's the
license.
same entity.
Yeah, they stated it at the beginning of the hearing. They
The
said
hotel
that.
is the
The
restaurant.
hotel is the
It's the
restaurant.
restaurant.
Yeah.
But, maybe if we'd had Ruben here, we would have had more
But what difference
information
does it
about
make?
this.
It has
sidewalk.
nothing to do with this.
No, but I know. Oh, so more people want to talk.
All right.
But not Darlene, sorry, we're business.
John Paul?
John Paul.
Maybe kind of underlining what Arturo was thinking. Maybe we're thinking about this from the way of a defensive position. If you had that space, what would you want to put there if you had a budget? And if you think about it that way, I would like to see Wi-Fi in there, maybe better lighting, maybe other offerings that we could get. And so instead of coming at from a place that they're changing the deal, can we think about it maybe from a different angle and say, you know what, how could they improve that? What we would
But
like
they're
to
not
see.
coming for that.
Can we just take a straw vote because we're wasting?
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah, there's a lot of
time.
We gotta
Yes.
get going here too, at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's
Ding, ding,
9
ding.
o'clock. So let's take a straw vote on just denying the application
I
entirely.
say we deny it.
Deny.
Could we say that we're going to deny it on the grounds of the bonus and the privatization of public space?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's.
So
I vote deny it.
Well done.
Which
Deny it
is
strongly.
Why don't we just do,
beneficial.
is that what you're putting forward, David?
I'm voting to deny it.
No, are you putting that forward to deny it strongly? Is the motion on the table for an official vote? You're muted.
You're muted. You're still muted.
David, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, David.
That's a
But,
good
what
thing
I'm
I'm not in
suggesting-
the room tonight, Carter. That's what I said.
Okay.
I don't think they can even arrogant crap. Okay.
But I'd like to put some criteria to our denials, so we're on the same page.
Okay, so
Valerie took her hand down.
can we, all right.
I think we'll
What are the-
agree
what are
on
the
that
criteria you're
criteria.
suggesting?
Yeah, can
I mean, that
you
is,
elaborate on what that means?
that is the purpose for denying it. is that
Okay.
it's-
So I'm sorry, we said the straw poll, and it sounds like the committee is going to end up being a denial. Is that fair to say?
That's what it looks like, yeah. And I guess we're deciding, what are the conditions or what are the basis for the deny? It's
Wouldn't it be the same reso as last time then?
I mean, yeah, the
It's
last
essentially
time
the
it
same.
was, based on the privatization of the public space.
It's also just that.
I mean, that was
with-
basically the one.
With the end of COVID, it's just having more space,
Right.
a sense of
Yeah.
space and
Right.
openness and.
What you were saying.
Yeah,
you-
and
Yeah.
I think that's
I keep
important.
seeing it as a place where demonstrators are gonna
But
bring
you
their
haven't been
tents
there. When
next
was the last
time.
time you were there?
Not that long ago. I go all the time.
So I think we can strengthen.
She's a
Yeah,
dog
we can
lover.
strengthen our
dog
denial.
Protest there that much.
Yeah, I mean, adding.
No, because, but they're closing off all the other.
Sidewalk cafe application.
They don't,
No,
they're
nobody
afraid.
doesn't
Yeah.
own Green
I mean,
Street.
they're
No, but they're afraid.
They're going
a
all
lack of
over.
good faith in that.
So are we
Um,
going to put in anything about if it's passed, I thought John Paul had some good ideas about the Wi-Fi. I think it's
That's not
important
what they
that,
came to us for. They didn't
But
come
then
to
you're-
us.
yeah,
I know. Right,
They
but
didn't come to us for utilizing the space. They came to us to put the restaurant there. They didn't,
Right.
I don't know why.
I think the
fine. So
the
we
specific
would have
question
to say,
is-
so we would have to refer to the findings, which is the basis of the denial, and say that it meets neither finding number one, which is such use promotes public use and enjoyment of the publicly accessible open space. That's number one. Or number two, such use complements desirable uses in the surrounding areas. Well, to us, desirable is public use. So it fails to meet findings number one and two.
Could you backdoor in then the suggestions there, including a failure to offer Wi-Fi, a failure to offer,
Well, that's
know,
not part of their remit, so that's hard to include.
But that's not part of their application.
I think in the comments, Darlene points out that the link services already offer the 5G.
Right.
In the
We don't want them
public
putting in a
Wi-Fi.
big.
Sidewalk.
Well, and also, once you start making those comments, then you're approving it in a
You're
sense.
giving them, you're
You're
basically
weakening
giving them
it.
a way.
Exactly right. You're opening the door with those comments.
That's right.
And they can
That's
just come
exactly
back and say, oh, we
Yeah.
can do
we
this.
did these things
Put a
that
hot dog
CB2
stand.
recommended.
Wi-Fi too from the hotel if they wanted to.
Yeah, it's
So,
not that
so can
hard
we
for
have
them
a
to
formal
turn
vote
off.
now? A formal vote now?
Let's take the formal vote then. So we'll deny it on the basis of lack of public benefit,
Privatization.
privatization of the public.
Yeah, findings one and two, because that's the language that they understand.
Okay,
Right,
findings
good
one and
point.
two.
He started
then-
out speaking about findings.
And then,
And then flesh it
also post-pandemic, the importance of public space in our community.
And we want to protect it.
Yes. And I mean, I appreciate, John Paul, your suggestions about like the free Wi-Fi and everything, but I think the committee seems to be under, I mean, I think the prevailing thought is that's kind of giving our tacit approval. And
And there is Wi-Fi, like Darlene said, right there. It's available.
oh, right, the link towers, the link towers already give Wi-Fi. So there is already a way for people on that street to get Wi-Fi.
yeah, that was just one of several suggestions, but I understand the committee's position. Again.
Yeah, I mean,
Next one.
it's such a small thing that they could give that I think really wouldn't address their,
Right.
they got such a big benefit off this in the first place, several floors.
Yeah,
like
we
Bo
just
said.
want to be really clean.
We can't get this floor.
With our
I want
comments.
Do we
I
have,
think-
okay, so can we take an official vote?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Oh, wait a minute.
You can oppose too. We don't have to be unanimous.
Let me see.
Too up late now. I'm only
Link NYC map, and
kidding.
there's one
I just-
on the.
I wish we could have negotiated with them a little bit more to get to an end result that I think maybe would have
Right,
been
no,
more
we
beneficial for the
understand.
community.
But we wouldn't have supported you.
Sometimes.
I'm not asking
Even on the negotiation, no, but the committee is,
why I voted the way I voted.
but you abstained, you have no vote.
Abstaining isn't voting.
Abstaining is not voting.
Okay, can I abstain?
We don't challenge his
Abstain.
vote, but can we just let him do what he wants?
Abstain, but then you can't say you voted.
Why I took the position I took.
That you took a
You
position.
didn't take
But you
a.
didn't take a position, you're abstaining.
But I
Abstaining.
took the position of abstaining.
Okay.
Well, you're explaining why you abstained, which
Yes.
is different than taking a position.
Okay, all right.
Next
You're going to keep
time.
it as an abstain? You
Yeah.
can.
On Houston Street, right?
Okay,
And
all right,
down
let's move on
it.
to the next one. 2 for the The village.
The nursing home, that's
The
good.
nursing
That's
home.
fine, that's fine.
West
It's
House.
fine. I think the architecture needs work.
Okay.
I think it's been like, it's almost like when you modify a photograph and you sort of stretch it.
How do
You
we
know.
want to articulate that in the resolution then?
I don't think we really have the
I
right
don't know
to do
that we
that. That's
do.
not, I mean, this is, I think we're approving the land use.
It's kind of like outside of our purview.
Yeah, it
isn't
is.
the
It
aesthetic?
totally is.
I mean, we're all for it. Let's.
I'm not for it. I'm actually.
I
gonna
love
vote-
it.
I'm gonna vote no on this one.
I vote no on
Yeah,
No
I
about
think-
more beds for the nursing home?
No, that's not what I said. I didn't give,
sorry.
I didn't even have a position like, or in that case, right?
Okay.
What I would say is that I think because housing is an important issue, when we're losing housing and not increasing it, that is a very worrisome pattern that we've already identified. I think the phrase of, death by 1,000 cuts has been already phrased in this community or district. And this is adding to those little cuts where we continue to lose housing. Yes, there is a good, it's a single family home. Yes, there is a case for more beds and obviously.
We have a lot of old people.
Sorry, with all these things, there's always trade-offs. There's always trade-offs. And I'm not saying one is more important
You're
than the
trading
other,
up
but I
one
think
mansion for rich
housing.
people over a nursing home.
We
Well,
lost
it's an opportunity for somebody to
lost
have a
the
home.
nursing
Are
care
you
center on.
effing kidding me? That's
I have spent time as a board chair where it's been blessed that people
Mark,
finding
you bring the chat
for
back up.
somebody who needs rehabilitation,
No,
who's
it's-
elderly, who lives in our community, so none of their other people can come visit them, which is why we live in a community and why we need these facilities.
This
These
place
are
is
part of
so
getting old.
valuable to us.
It's a miracle we have village nursing.
Sanity to say
Miracle.
that this
I'm
is.
sorry, thank you, thank you.
Because the 20 beds are
Yeah.
20 homes,
Families.
20
Families.
homes for people who are infirmed, who need a place to stay in their community.
And the Medicaid people, it could be their last home.
Yeah, and not be.
They stay the longest.
And their
So these
neighbors
are
come to
actually
visit them.
homes.
They can
Well,
visit
that
them.
you can't stay there indefinitely, as someone who's
Well,
been there.
No.
I mean, during
No,
COVID,
it's a
we went
transition
to the window.
All right.
This is where.
When Doris
Doris
was
was
there,
there.
one of our longest serving board members,
Yeah.
and
This was
we
her last.
did her birthday through the window,
So she was living there.
and when
Yeah.
she was there.
No,
She took
visiting.
meetings from there,
You
right?
can't
Yeah.
go there and stay. They won't take you if
But
you're
she
that
was there
kind.
for
in
some
from
time.
there.
Okay, we can.
Anyway.
But
Let's
it's not a
go.
house, that's.
But again, we don't have to vote unanimously. I don't know if there's anything
Donna,
wrong with
We're
that.
trying to explain to our,
Get to speak.
House just one of the most important.
I was just gonna, we had the nursing
Quiet,
home
quiet.
down the street on Hudson Street that is now however many luxury apartments sitting inside there. So I mean, you got your housing there. You've got the housing there. We've lost the village care that we had down the block from me. So.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, they had.
And nobody's in, just for the record, I think there's like one or two people that actually live in those living houses.
Yeah.
They don't live there, but there's plenty of housing for everybody who needs.
And the
housing.
nursing
I mean, I
home by
think-
Abington Square, is that what you're talking about? That one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Building. It's a good-sized building.
Village nursing home.
There.
Right, village nursing home, sorry.
Here is who lived in this house most recently.
Yeah.
Ian Bremer. Michael Simon, he did not live there. He has plenty of other houses.
People in the.
Cynthia Holland, she also probably had plenty of other houses. I don't know the Oakses. You know who they are? I mean,
Well, they were
there
there
for 2 years.
It's not like these are
What?
people who rent stabilized.
2 years.
No, these are single family homes and
but I mean, even in these single.
I think Carter's statement is valid. You need to look at this as a residence because, and I think it's easy to overlook that when you haven't had to use a facility. I mean, I haven't had to use one, but when I was in the hospital for a long time, like there was a chance that I could have been discharged into like a longer term care facility. And that would have been a great option for me because I was like my partner had to commute all the way up to
that's right,
102nd Street every day. And
the
we
local
just
part
don't
is really
have-
big.
It's what every community needs.
Yeah, I mean, our community is more than just houses. Like, I think that's we need to have a bigger view that not just apartments, but it's also like the things that make it
Yeah,
worth living.
Community.
It's how you care about the people.
Maybe even a
in
hospital.
your area.
It's,
I mean,
it's
the
akin
fact that
to
we
buying into this argument that we are the home for ultra luxury housing and therefore we should bend over constantly to keep it that way, because that's what we've been told. And that when we argue for affordability, we're shut down by the city and say, no, you are where the homes that are combined go. You are where you lose homes. You are the space where townhouses are supposed to be combined back into single family homes.
Yeah.
And that's what this is when we need a center of affordability in local communities and not have this actually pushed out to the outer areas.
We've never had it go in reverse before.
Yeah.
We've never had it go from an ultra luxury single family home to something that benefits the
community facility.
Usually we're in despair because it goes the other way.
Always.
Yeah, like
Always.
losing, right? like losing
Always.
a hospital.
Not usually, always.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the pattern, again, that I'm trying to speak to is alluding to what you're saying, right? Multifamily units becoming single family homes, multiple single family homes being converted into a single family, multi-building property. Like all of these patterns, I am not okay with. And this is a very like warranted and meritful project. But even like I alluded to, like it could have been a mixed use project, right? There could be a housing component in addition to the business interest that, this rehabilitation center is like seeking.
But they said that.
But at the price of losing beds.
Just to go back in history, before 1998, there were 3 apartments in here and this was combined in 1998 to create a single family home.
Yeah.
So 3 floors, right? An apartment per floor.
Well, I just think maybe this isn't the place to make that point.
Right.
We have many other opportunities, especially in landmarks, where we've got 3 row houses going into one, and we're trying to actually architecturally make them look individual.
Right.
But here, where our dire need for these beds and has affected most of us personally, people in the community from, been there a long time, we've all been there to visit somebody. So this might not be the place to.
It's impossible to get something like this built, it's such a miracle that we have this and that they came up with a way to.
And it's really nice. It's a really good place and
Very clean.
very good place. Yeah.
Could we vote?
Yes.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, good with that.
I'm gonna vote no. I'm still gonna vote no.
I think we
We're
voted.
still gonna vote no?
We did, yes,
We didn't
and
take
one
an
no.
official. All right, so yes.
In
All right.
favor, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, and then no.
John Paul, Frederica, did you put your hand up? David, David,
Gerber.
is your hand up? Okay,
Yes, okay.
okay, so that's
We have one no
9
vote.
committee members, yes.
And then no abstentions, no recusals.
1 public member, yes. And what is your vote again?
No.
Okay.
Not abstaining this time.
1.
No, public members, sorry.
Yes, sorry, yes, there are public members of the committee, they can vote. It didn't say that, just so that you know.
Okay,
Okay, wait a minute.
All right.
all right.
1 committee member, no.
We got it all recorded. Thank you for recording that.
Okay, and that's in favor.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Can we move on to our sole business item, which is the Gansevoort, what do we call this? The Gansevoort Plaza
Proposal.
The Gansevoort proposal.
Square.
Okay. I will give a brief update on things that have happened since our last land use meeting. The EDC had an additional 2 outreach sessions, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday. The Wednesday one was strictly virtual. Can I get a show of hands, like how many people went to any of the outreach sessions? Okay, so I think the one I went to on Wednesday, I think what I had heard from the testimony was a lot of people were concerned about the height, the number of affordable units. The question came up again about the public public land market rate housing.
Big one.
And we have also had a meeting with so Katie, myself, and Susan Kent had a meeting with representatives from the overlapping electeds. That's what EDC is calling them, but that would be Eric Botcher's office, Brad Hoyland's office, and Deborah Glick. Those three electeds had a meeting with EDC last Friday.
In addition, Goldman was
In
represented
addition,
and the borough president
right,
at that
so-
meeting.
Right, so there were 5 electeds at that meeting. And the purpose of the meeting, Gigi had told us the purpose of that meeting was supposed to be for the city to tell them whether or not they were going to change the schedule for the rollout of the RFP. They did not actually address that with them. Instead, they have set up a separate meeting inviting CB2 leadership as well as the overlapping electeds again. And so another meeting has now been set up for this coming Friday at City Hall, where we've been told what they're going to do is go through point by point our resolution and respond to that to us in person. I have to say it seems that the direction so far, from what I can tell and from what we can tell, is that they're going to keep the January timeline for the RFP, which is a little surprising.
January.
Yes.
This month, this January.
January
25?
2025, that's the next 2 weeks, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't know that for a fact yet. We're going to know, but I was hoping that we would have known by now, because that was the purpose of the meeting last Friday with the electeds. Instead, now we have an additional meeting this coming Friday. Susan, is there anything you want to add from this summary?
No, I mean, I think you've covered it. It sounds like they're moving through on their own timetable. And we're just sort of along for the ride.
Yeah.
And the electeds have been following through, following through on our resolution. They've been supporting our points, and that's
Including Eric?
So
far, yes. So Deborah Glick, I think we forwarded the letter around to the committee, did we not?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
No.
so we could forward the letter from Deborah Glick.
Sure.
But Deborah Glick sent a letter to EDC strongly supporting, I think there were several things she supported. She supported having this RFP not having in January. She specifically asked for in the affordable for who, she wanted the 100 to 120% AMI option taken off the table. She pushed for 100% affordability.
And
So
she
that-
also was very
Great lady.
strong on the fact that EDC keeps saying, and they said it the last time we
Yep.
spoke to them, that we don't welcome housing in our community board. And she went through examples of how we do. And she's, reiterating our language about the fact that we promote housing and then it's taken away. The city turns it into commercial somehow.
I think we need to keep reminding the city that we don't produce housing. I mean, that's not the community board's role. But
But
we keep
it's a
getting.
homonym. It's a way to distract
Of course.
and reduce our
Our voice.
credibility, our voice, right,
Yes.
exactly.
And
That's
it's
a
rewriting history.
technique,
It's rewriting history,
yeah.
because that's, we keep asking for this and we keep being told.
We're going to get offices instead.
Yeah,
Right.
the offices are just as important to promote in our community as opposed to housing.
Right. And in the very place they're looking to build housing, it's still not as of right. I mean, it's a manufacturing district. So.
Well, and they're saying we're opposed when we're saying, hey, how do we do this better?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, and here we're
Which is
trying to
insane.
fight for the private, for the city land, and it's already been given away.
Yeah.
So we're
blindsided.
So that was one of the other things in our resolution. If you remember, we asked for what are the other properties that the city has done the cross subsidy model with. Gigi told us that there was going to be a list of properties at the State of the City announcement this week. Was it this week?
It was
Last week.
Well, they're very busy
Last
because they're
week.
keeping their deadline.
So, but the only
Yeah,
property
dime.
that they came up with was 100 Gold Street.
Right, which is a city office building.
Yeah. So we were expecting there to be a larger list. I mean, I'm kind of glad there wasn't, because I would hope that this isn't the model for the future, right? I hope this isn't the template the city's going to follow from now on.
Because it's a big lot. I mean, they're gonna put 2,000 units on it.
It seems a continuation of a mindset of using sort of extra space.
Yeah.
As opposed to here, the other space hasn't been developed yet. So there's an opportunity to look at it as a larger whole, as we discussed at the full board meeting.
Yeah.
And instead, this is an afterthought to the side of a really super tall tower, when this could actually be done in a whole development. They don't have to be separate, as was pointed out. It can be done a little bit more
cohesively, I guess.
Integrated,
but in such a way that it's not. I mean, this is sort of looks like a prize development site for a private developer, which doesn't fit the idea of benefiting the public in a way through publicly owned space where it should be fully affordable.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to, and again, being told our area is too nice to be for regular people.
Right, it is what this.
And as opposed to developing it more. And even, I think, was pretty pointed out in a way that was very interesting, that talks about the difference between renters and homeowners, and the difference in AMI, and that includes homeowners, which raises dramatically the whole affordability matrix to a higher level, because it accounts for homeowners, which is very different from the renters. So.
Part of what they really said was too valuable for as opposed to too nice,
Right.
and when they said that, that was like, it was inconceivable to give something so valuable to a program. Right.
Yeah, to your teachers and your nurses
Like,
and
how
your
dare we, right?
cops and your firefighters to live close in their community.
It also reflects the same thing we had on the, what's the other site address, 388?
Yeah.
Is that we were trying to integrate the housing and sort of incorporating some of the airspace, at least, over this big park or water
tunnel.
thing. Yeah. And that was just completely way too complicated for even to be addressed.
Wait, they thought it was too expensive, right?
Well, I think they want to keep them separate in case they sell them or something. It is one property.
Yeah.
The city owns it, so it'd be nice to express that. Instead, same thing with this tower. We've got a tower, it's gonna need, hopefully they will put some windows on all those facades. These are all lot line properties, and it's just that, it could be two different owners. Well, it is the Whitney and the other, whereas, you could combine some of it. It would be more useful and be more economical from a spatial point of view.
Yeah. The Whitney also sent a letter to us, and I think that's been distributed as well. So
around 5 o'clock.
Yeah, they sent it today. Kind of defending the site plan. And so I think I did send this one around right before the meeting, which is when we got it. But they're defending the site plan. They're also defending their right of first offer and saying that they've given up on the right of first offer to make the housing happen.
On that corner.
Right.
Oh, gee. Well, there's so many things that you can do to integrate the site. For example, I was thinking, why do we have this hole down here? The High Line is up here, then it drops down a couple of stories, then you have this nasty little walkway, which is gonna be a terrible wind tunnel. Maybe that comes up to the height of the High Line and everything underneath it becomes a big grocery store, whatever commercial space. It seems so wasteful to me to have this little token. They're calling it open space. It's no space at all. It's a passageway.
The Whitney looks forward to acquiring, programming, maintaining, and making available to the public the open space between the museum.
It'll be a line setup area where people line up to enter.
Yeah, safe, well.
That's public.
Yeah.
But it could be more innovative, more creative. There's more solutions than just, maybe that, it doesn't need to be at street level.
Yeah.
I don't know, something. Maybe we have a really exotic ramp going up. I don't know. There's a lot of things that could enliven it and also make it part of one.
There's the whole elevated High Line right there, right?
There you go. Well, it is an advantage and it is a major elevation. So I mean, it'd be nice to get up there and not have to start walking. If you're up there, you got a place to like collect yourself before you hike.
Right.
Anyway, it's very very simplistic way it's shown now.
Yeah. Oh, Frederica.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry I can't be in the room with you guys. If you recall, we were gobsmacked by that whole thing. And when we wrote that reso, we had about 10 minutes to do it. And there was just so much that we couldn't absorb that we decided, this is my recollection, we decided that we were just going to try and get them to push to the date on the RFP. Right? That was our original goal. But when you meet with them, so much has happened since then. And so they've heard so much from people other than the community board. It was really gratifying to hear people from other communities pushing back on the Whitney and pushing back on the High Line. And I feel that when you guys go into the meeting, you should not feel constrained by the narrowness of our resolution. If there's other things that you have to bring in that represent our point of view, you should do that. I was amazed by the Whitney's letter because I thought it was as if they were deaf. There was one thing in that letter that was new, and they had not evolved at all. I was really expecting some kind of bone that they would throw, being a sensitive.
Acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Just acknowledgement, or we're thinking about it, we heard you. I don't know if they're going to be at your meeting, but a lot of the community that I have heard is very happy to push back against the Whitney, and things must be pretty bad if people are doing that. I thought at the meeting, I think we should be asking for more space for the residential building. No supermarket is going to take 10,000 square feet minus all the common space and elevators and all. But I think that we have to look further into 485X, and you brought this up at one of the meetings, Eugene. There's a lot of rules in 485X that they were saying they didn't know about permanent affordability, about tax abatements. It's really worth looking into. And somebody said something about we can't have 120 AMI. Well, the reason for that is you'd have to have 0 AMI as a balance so that you wind up with 60. It's just hard to balance. It's just hard to come out with an average of 60 if you have 120. I'm concerned about what we're going to do, for what we want our next steps to do, what we want to do for our February meeting. If we feel that we've done everything we can, how can we flesh out our opinion? Maybe taking bits and pieces of the program for that space.
Yeah, and just Frederica, I was going to say, Frederica raised a really good point, which is, it seems that from this meeting to the full board, there's some other steps that are happening that maybe are, it seems like they're just going to tell us why they're doing it. but.
Take out the
you know,
why.
We,
Take out the why.
tell us they're doing.
Tell us what they're doing.
And, you know, and we heard why we're wrong constantly on this housing stuff when it's not just us. And I appreciate the Whitney's communications. I didn't have time just because of when we got it. But it was kind of jumped out at me, you know, that we have a lot of multiple layers on here. And, you know, it's talking about the city's needs during the Bloomberg administration versus now, and different people's needs, and then immediacy. But wouldn't getting more of everything be what we would want? And I seem to think a lot of the board during our full board meeting seemed to think this wasn't a good deal in the way it was being presented. And then and we're being told we don't want housing, and that's not the case at all.
Right.
It's just that a 60-story
super tower,
you know, super tower isn't really, I mean, what that has to do with anything, I don't know. But here you have a fairly large site that is a great multi-use development site that could be done a different way. And even reading the Whitney's letter, nobody said anything at our meeting that they couldn't have large floor plates.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody said that they couldn't accomplish any of these goals. Nobody said that they weren't important to our community.
Right.
Nobody said any of these things. What we're saying is that in a reevaluation of the evolving city, and very much came out of the Bloomberg administration, while many good things happened, we also saw refocusing of the city, not on the needs of regular people and not on low and moderate income housing. We saw an acceleration in our community the other direction.
Super luxury
and the super luxury, and this just continues that, as opposed to what seems to be a need for larger amounts of housing. I mean, I know everybody's on the same page, but none of this is incongruous. It all does fit together. It's
Right, the
doing it
points that-
better.
Yeah, the points that she's bringing up weren't things that we brought up.
Yeah.
Or that we object, as Carter said, we didn't say you can't have big floor plates, do it a little different way.
Well, or have some over you
Right.
that
I
don't
think the one
belong to
suggestion we
you.
had was that let's have housing on top.
And isn't better housing and good long-term housing what's important on a site where you only have one opportunity to develop?
Right.
Yes. I think what really bothered me at that presentation was this idea that because they found a way to do it faster,
Right.
like that.
Supposedly.
Which they didn't tell us.
Well, I know, but
exactly how
that
much
was the
faster.
excuse
Yeah.
for really, and faster to bring profit to fewer people. That's what they were, and us not really noticing somehow that going fast would be the fastest way to get the money from those developers. And, you know, it's the same story. It's not, that's no advantage at all. So it takes another couple of years if that's the way that we.
And we'll have people who really live there, who really need the housing, and who will live there for a
Yeah,
long
for-
time.
for- right,
Not
for
not
more
like
than-
2 years.
And maybe also make it substantial. Everything is so little petty stuff to me. Like we're talking about, you know, 20 studios, or we need hundreds and thousands of.
And they're not
We have to make a dent somewhere.
I'm not saying it's permanent.
Right.
And they hope it's 50%, you know, they're so vague,
So, and
which means.
whether it's
won't be.
50% unit or
Yeah.
floor area was never articulated, which is
Right.
enormous difference.
What we're
Exactly.
being offered is really
Unqualified difference.
25%.
And not permanent.
Well,
And we don't have,
They
we
won't
don't have
commit
their
to that.
And so we're
guarantees that it's
really
permanent.
in a rush to get that done. You know, I'm being sarcastic. Obviously, that's not, who's benefiting? The same people. It's not a benefit to us as a community going around it so that A, we don't have time to comment, and B,
Well, they just
it's
want our
get it
input on it.
built, and this is the only way, and.
And there are 4 things we're
Yeah,
allowed
the
to
4
comment.
things on that slide, which, you know,
It's very disturbing. It feels like a shell game or something.
Yeah, I mean, they would like our opinion about 4 small things.
Too many winter clouds.
Right.
I mean, teeny things, like the sidewalk on West Street. That's what they want our opinion.
And what kind of retail space or?
All right, get busy. You know, we've got the big stuff here and we're not even anywhere to talking about something. So there's so many issues with the site plan that.
Well, they were, I remember
me
that
away.
they were so adamant whenever we brought up the site plan, saying, oh, but we've worked on this. We can't reopen those discussions.
Well, it wasn't
But the
to
site
our
plan
liking.
was not, we had never been a part of any of those.
No.
No.
Well, I don't know. I better be quiet. I have
I mean, I think clearly the community is very upset.
Yeah,
with the way this is unfolding.
And I don't like being hoodwinked, like, well, you really don't have time to look at this because we are,
Right, we're on a
right, we
timetable.
found a way to push this through.
Right.
I mean, that's why I said, when you said the community, when I said at the last meeting,
Yeah.
last week, that people were being very polite at the meeting. You know, nobody was yelling and screaming like they were at the Soho No-Go, but the people are really upset because
Yeah.
this is a tragic loss, an outrage.
What's an outrage? And it's, I mean, we're getting a sundial. That's it. A sundial, and it's gonna go so high into the cloud we won't see it. So, that's it. We're gonna have a sundial. That's what that little tower is.
And I also take a little bit of offense, that we're against affordable housing, particularly because, with 388 Hudson.
Yeah.
We actually said, we'll use the site, use it and use it well.
Right,
But it was
right.
done in a practical manner. At least what we've seen, I mean, it's obviously still
I mean,
early
but we
stages.
asked for like a
but
more
yeah,
larger number.
And it was not, it's a reasonable, it's a tall building. It has a lot of units.
Yeah.
It takes into account certain things. It has a public benefit, we hope on the lower floors.
With that.
And it becomes a highlight of a center of affordability, right? That we need in our community in many different ways. And here there's an opportunity with a major cultural institution, with housing, to really repurpose the site in a much better way to accomplish all the goals. And the expense of sort of this immediacy of a win of housing over a better development.
It's not a good trade-off. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to slow it down. We're actually trying to get the best situation.
It's the best opportunity we're gonna ever have. It's a miracle this appeared.
Right.
And we constantly lose out on these situations
I know.
because, let's say it takes a little longer to build one side of the site, not the other, and we end up without the housing because there's some other little bump as opposed to a larger normal project.
Yeah.
In a normal scope and a normal height and not some super tall on a little corner.
Yeah, maybe.
But why shouldn't we fight for as much affordable housing as we can get on that site? I mean, it's.
Absolutely.
And again, I don't think that we're necessarily afraid of height, but this is unreasonable.
Yeah.
And wouldn't a larger.
It's very inefficient
Right.
design. It really is. You have so much vertical transportation.
Yeah.
It takes up your footprint. Before you know it, you have a couple of
Elevators
closets
and
around.
everything.
You could also
Yeah.
have multiple elements rising from a better designed site that's
Yeah.
lower and actually end up with potentially equal or more housing
Than the 600.
than that kind of height.
It's also so
just-
inequitable.
It's just, it's difficult to comprehend the poor plan. But with that said, what's the plan? Because we can all talk about this. Do we want to respond again with more detail? Did we already say what we wanted to say? I mean, what else? If they're going to go ahead, do we still want to wait to have a better response? Because, I don't know. They don't seem to be interested in having us help shape this.
No, but there are 4 little questions.
Well, Oh, do you want us to, the 4 questions?
Oh, yeah, it was public realm, affordability.
Retail
The retail
space.
space.
And then, like efficiency or, yeah, basically like the green aspect of it.
Oh, right.
But that was what they had at the public session, but I forget.
It's sort of like you're already buying into it when you're answering those kind of questions.
Yeah, you're
That's the
saying
problem.
we're saying we're okay with the 25%,
Yeah, big
60% AMI.
Yeah.
And those are fundamental issues that once they're baked into the RFP, we're not going to be able to change that. Or it's going to be very difficult.
That seems like their object, their goal.
Can I interject over here?
Yes.
My fantasy is that they're going to send out the RFP. They're going to give the developers 3 months to reply, and the developers are going to see how unfeasible this building is, both in terms of the population and the height of it, the height and the spireness of it. I think it would be a mistake for us to respond to them. This is going to be a years-long process. And I think we have to let a little more water go under the dam. I think they have to hear from the electeds a little bit more. I don't think we lose anything by waiting, except that we can be gathering more information. We can be gathering more information about what we want to see in the public realm, answer some of the, they had, I'm not sure which 4 questions you're talking about, but there was one slide that said public realm that had 4 questions. And that's an opportunity for us to really have an impact, because I feel that they are overwhelmed. They wouldn't be asking us questions if they knew the answers. So if they don't know the answers, let's give them our answers. So my vote is to continue talking about the public realm and talking about public benefits until more things have happened.
Yeah, Frederica, I'd say the one thing about that is that the developer will come back and say, oh, no, this isn't a good design. It's not feasible. We have to make it all luxury. That's what will happen.
That's what the market.
That may happen, but I don't see a scenario where EDC could back off to that degree. I think what's going to happen is they're going to say, we need more land to build a wider, squatter building with more footprint. We can't put retail in there, and we can't afford to build. Tall buildings are really expensive to build, right? And that's 60.
We've got them in Midtown.
Well, Susan has her hand.
Yeah, Susan and then Carter.
I want to raise the idea that there is some point beyond which this no longer becomes a project that we can support at any level. If there's too little housing, if there's too little that is to the benefit of the community, we want to support this. We want, to get the best possible deal. But I think there should also be a recognition that if they come back and give us such a poor deal, that we have to be prepared to say, no, this can't go forward at all, because it is just so much of a sellout that what the community is getting, it's not worth moving forward until you rethink the whole thing.
But you're not thinking that we're going to do that in the next couple of months.
No, but I'm saying it's that, you're raising some really important points here, but there's also the reality that at below some threshold, this isn't worth doing at all.
Right. Yeah.
It's a one-off chance.
Yeah.
To utilize it fairly.
Which is exactly why we can't make compromises, over and over. At some point, that has to also be there, and that we may have to do that, because the way we're being treated is like we're the poor relations in the room.
There's something important here, though. It's from the Whitney's letter, to go back and look at this, that the priorities of 2008 to now, this is actually addressing the failures of the policies at that time period.
From the Bloomberg.
And trying to hold on to one vestige of that, which is this concept of individual buildings and singular uses for a cultural institution. And I think that we're revisiting some of these combined uses, and we constantly do that. How do we get better? How do we get better? How do we get better? And while holding on to that one, that's actually nobody's, in fact, I think that some of these trade-offs would happen that we would actually give up, that is a public benefit to better develop the site and have more of the site on the ground floor dedicated to a museum. Having open space up above with, some towers is one example, setbacks, it's all different kinds of ways of doing that. But this approach, the concessions they're asking for aren't quite real. Like, do we need open space right at this area? I'm not sure we do.
Whitney
but
needs it. Right.
well, the open space is created to create the distance from the residential.
Right.
It's not actually what's a need. It's
It's a
serving.
misnomer too. It's
that's
not
right.
an open space.
And you're absolutely right, looking for better ways to utilize this, and the number one way we prevent a better examination is by rushing through it. I mean, that's, it's almost like a threshold problem. If you rush through it, and get to that RFP, then all of this, creative thinking and re-examination gets stopped.
Yeah, it's.
Gotta say that
been
tomorrow.
firmly in the past, right?
That
I mean, we
is
can't-
a threshold problem.
And I can, without by any means being an expert on this, we've lost some of our major cultural institutions because of this concept of a standalone, right? And serving multiple purposes actually in this use brings together more.
Give us an example of.
Well, there's one opera house in New York City.
Oh, you're saying city.
So individual buildings.
Yeah, these individual things. It's like, by having multiple uses, it's actually on an undeveloped site that serves the weaknesses of the city.
That's right.
I think is a good thing. And it's a good model as we run out of space, unless the city starts to take down things, which.
Well, and they have an architectural statement.
Even right now, we're not talking about taking down buildings after COVID, even though office buildings, we still talk about repurposing,
Right.
So this city still hasn't gotten to that point. So we have an opportunity to build new here,
on a fresh site.
which is unusual. Why shouldn't this be done in a little bit better?
And it doesn't mean we don't like museums. It doesn't mean we don't like affordable housing. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just, it's more complicated than.
A simple carving up of.
And it was the last of the
That's the
meatpacking
easy thing to do.
plants, it was so meaningful to the city.
Yeah, they are. They're saying.
Now
this
it's
part
become
of housing,
something
this
else,
is us.
equally meaningful.
Well, it's pretty unappealing at the moment.
I mean, you can think about places like Donnell Library across from the MoMA, which they took down. They built a new library and they built housing on top. That made
Yeah.
sense.
Beautiful.
MoMA put housing on top.
Well,
Yeah,
museum itself.
That's a great example.
That's right.
Right.
And in Brooklyn.
Or
they've done
City
the same
Court.
thing. What?
It's the church under City Court corner.
That's right. St. Peter's.
Cantilever. What's wrong with the good old cantilever?
And churches are doing that all over the place.
And you wouldn't know. It's above you. So what the hell? It's not like,
And when you're
not even
inside-
looking out on it. You're in
What's
it.
interesting is that you've actually provided examples of what you want, unlike where the city is talking about a financing model that they don't have examples of. But in order to present this, you need a little time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're robbing us of that time and
Robbing
that
us of
discussion.
Well, on purpose. It's very convenient.
Right.
It
It's
is
very
absolutely
offensive.
conscious.
Well, it also
Yeah.
just seems to fit a narrative from an area which is not interested in thinking about this better.
No.
And I
Unfortunately.
just don't, I don't know what, I mean, I think that Susan brings a good point. At this point, why would we?
Why would we support this?
Yeah, why would we support this? And it doesn't, I mean, commenting on a small commercial use
Mhm.
on a corner of a block.
Doesn't really
What's that
enhance
gonna
our-
do? commenting on an open space programming, I mean, where.
This is a
next
harsh
to-
environment too. It's
Yeah,
like
next to
silly.
a park that has
That's
its
the
own
park across
issues,
the
you
water from three
know.
parks.
And
And
five rows of super highway. I mean, it's a very difficult. You need some good solutions, not just, well, what would you like to see there? You know, I mean, that's silly. That's silly.
And there's also a tie-in.
Design consultant.
There's also a tie-in to across the street. You know, you have state elected officials, right?
Oh, the
This
state-
is
the state-
an
the state
absence
land.
of some,
State land.
perhaps some better planning.
I think we
This
should have
is
a
an-
bridge, by the way.
Well,
for it,
well,
to
this
the
isn't,
river.
this is an interesting area. I mean, what would demapping a street, would that make a difference? You know, you could have a whole different site that's created.
It would make perfect sense,
Yeah.
to go from the
Why are we
High
accepting
Line
the
to
site
the
as it is,
Hudson
right?
Park.
Well, you
Yeah,
can
I
make
mean-
Little West 12th Street into a promenade.
Well,
Pedestrian
you could also
promenade.
just demap it and have build on it and change the site to better.
Yeah.
I know, but super blocks.
I mean, back to, I mean, what, I think
don't
you
like-
brought up a very good point about elevations. I mean, this is a site we're already dealing with multiple elevations.
Absolutely, and having
Why are
one
we-
3 stories down in the dark
Yeah,
is
why are we
not
limiting
a good
ourselves?
public space.
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
yeah, why does the entrance have to be at the ground level?
And it's gonna be a wind tunnel and,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
God.
So I think.
Yes, yes.
So I think for this Friday, I mean, for this month, I don't know that it makes sense to put out another rushed resolution. We barely had time to put out the resolution last month.
Right,
I don't think much has changed in terms of what we know, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
not
Right.
from them, no.
But do we, and forgive me, I've looked at the.
Well, that's the thing, all these
our
things.
Past resolutions, so
Okay,
I'm a little bit tired from a long night last night. But do we have everything that's passed by the board in order for you guys to further continue the appropriate discussions? I think that we do have those with the voted on position. You know, is there something missing? That's the only thing that I would think that is a timeliness that would be involved here. And I just bring that up because that's something that, you know,
Well, I mean,
important to
what,
have.
like an example of.
I mean, just if there are any elements that you think are missing. I mean, if we need, I think the board already took a position that this is not this is not satisfactory. But
For
they've
X
asked
number of
us
the
for
reasons.
answers to 4 questions. Is our last resolution a good enough spot to leave us in? And again, I don't have it in front of me, you know.
Well, it says more time, right?
Yeah.
That would be.
No, I just say
And that's
that
at the,
because.
and that's at the basis of everything.
Because they're gonna go forward and we haven't commented on them, which is okay, and I'm totally fine with that, but is there anything else?
I mean, we haven't, we haven't commented on a number of things and, you know, Gigi has been actually also pressuring us to comment on, for example, what are the percentages that we'd like to see of the AMIs? And I think that's kind of a step forward.
And that's skipping over and forcing us beyond the very conversation that you
Yes.
just had now.
Yes.
Think about the conversation that you just had now, throwing out in this short period of time, the very ideas that you are throwing out there that could fundamentally change the nature of the project. And if you start talking about the proportions in terms of the affordability, you've already jumped over these critical things.
And we also addressed that. We said we wanted it 100% affordable.
From the
That's what
start, we
we
said
want.
that, yeah.
So-
And that's a no.
And we assumed that because it's city owned land.
Right. So to say anything different is.
Now we're saying, oh, we accept your status quo, which is 25%, a reach of 50.
I also think that we need a lot more study of the site to make any kind of beneficial design. The fact that it's this mass of buildings, I think of the Whitney, not that I don't love the Whitney, but it's almost like 2 big elephants sort of parked up
Right, just
against
like
the
plopped on.
High Line. Then you have this dark little thing. and then you have the sundial. So if it was designed in such a way where you had slivers or, like the Japanese view with the forced perspective where you can see the water, where you're engaged with the water, this is so removed
Yeah.
from the very extraordinary.
Other neighbors there said that we're losing the water. We're losing the fact that.
Let's just build a wall.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's cutting off from the,
I'm sorry, I have to go now, but I attended all three. I don't know if anybody else did. I attended all three of their meetings. I think I heard maybe one person in favor of what the Whitney has in mind. And I think that that's a very valuable tool for you to use at your meeting. How can you go ahead with something that is so unpopular in your community?
in their own outreach.
Yeah. So,
and we're just talking about mass too, because we don't even know what it's gonna look like.
well, at the last meeting, they didn't even have any reference to how tall the building was going to be.
They just had a building envelope.
Yes. So please consider after your meeting, giving a little write-up to the committee so we understand how it went.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I don't know, do you have a plan for February or? Will that be, that will emerge over the course of the next?
I think that'll emerge. I mean, Jeffrey from the Gansevoort bid did reach out and wanted to have a discussion on the public realm. I think there's like the Gansevoort bid has a public realm document that they presented to traffic and transportation. I don't know. I think it's a little premature.
I like your street idea.
But
well, it was a reso that the community board passed.
Yes.
So it is good to kind of be up on our opinions, right?
The one thing we could do,
opinions.
but we could have we could invite them to a future land use meeting and see what they have in terms of what they developed for the public, the Gansevoort bid.
To talk about the public realm.
They have realm, but again, I think that's jumping ahead a few steps from where we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in relation to that development or just public realm in the bid district in our.
Over in that area.
Well, I think they have a public realm.
They did. I mean, they came to traffic and transportation with something, but quite frankly, I think this has thrown a little bit of a wrench in some of the things they had planned.
Oh,
because they had a whole thing for 10th Avenue. I mean, I'm just saying that, they have a whole thing for 10th Avenue.
Out of date.
I mean, they had something for 14th Street was.
I remember that, yeah.
And then the other one is this 10th Avenue Gateway.
Okay.
And this is where that is. And, so part of that, and they did the lower part of it, and you've got the bike lane now going north. They may have other things, closing streets, opening streets, whatever they're doing with that. But I think those were their two big projects that they were doing. And I don't know how this impacts that, but it doesn't appear they are part of this conversation either. Right.
No, they haven't been a part of it.
Right.
No, they haven't.
It almost seems as if this is private property.
Yeah.
And it's being developed as such through a quasi-governmental agency and
without public review.
Addressing the changing needs.
I couldn't get a hard mark.
Of the city. And an acknowledgement of that. Be adjourned.
All right. Should we take a motion to adjourn?
We should adjourn.
Since people are abandoning the meeting already.
Adjourn officially.
I think
we've lost form already.
Night, guys.
Thanks, right. Thank you, everyone.
And the Zoom?
I don't have the for the Zoom.
I'm interested because I don't think there's a mouse over there.
You have the mouse?
Mouse is somewhere.
The mouse. Oh, there was another piece?
Can we?
Are we out?
Yeah, can I?
Stop your recording. You need to stop the recording. Okay.